Hey, Gumby. What's up, brother?
Bullshit, I can't hear you. Sound off like you got a pair.
So full of crap. You're full of it. I was actually legit concerned because I just changed the streaming setup again. Why? Because it's never good enough. That's why. What are you? You're a chicken lover. Excuse me, with the children around, we prefer to call him the chicken lover. That is a very, very old South Park reference. No, I usually don't do the Advent to Cyber, because every day is Advent to Cyber for me. What, you gotta go outside again? Hang on, be right back. I gotta let Peaches out. I'm not pooping, Gumby. I literally had to go let Peaches out. Oh, man. Ugh. I'm tired today, too. For multiple reasons. One of them being I was in a class all day today, so I'm a little bit brain cooked. TikTok. Yeah, I'm watching the timer. That's all right. I got some fun ones set up for the new stream, though, tonight. Found a couple of interesting ones. All right, let's get started. Let's see how it looks also, because there is a new camera and a new piece of tech up here. Hey, P44, what's up, brother? All right, let's see how this looks. Hold on, I gotta try that again. Hold on. I was messing with the filters in OBS. All right, apparently where I had the filters placed, it breaks. I move where the filters are. I didn't expect that. All the testing I did, and I didn't test the animation. It used to be so buttery, silky smooth, and now it's like... Damn it. All right. I know how to fix that after the stream's done. So damn it. So, what's up everybody? I hope y'all are having a fantastic week. I'm having a good week. I'm just brain tired today because I was in a training class all day with Jason Haddix, and very cool class, just a lot of content. And actually, even if it was like easy content, you go through a whole day of like being in a classroom setting. Fine. I'm green? You better be messing with me, Gumby. I checked so many settings on this camera. If you're lying to me, I'm gonna ban you so hard. And man, I've already finished my Jocko drink too, because I usually have a dedicated spot for it. I've got a spot like right here on my desk, which is where I put it. And I did not, for the one time, put it there. And so what happened, I knocked the damn thing over and dumped out half of it onto the carpet. There was a reason that spot exists. And sometimes you just gotta FAFO. And that's what I did. I FA and I half FO'd. So not sponsored by actually, dang it, the camera's all moved now. I was about to do it over here. The camera used to be here and now the camera's here. Not sponsored by Jocko yet. I look green all around me. Well, it's probably because I was also adjusting the green screen location. Is it like mostly in the beard? Because that would make sense. Yeah, the beard had the greenish hue on the old camera too. You just couldn't see it. The new camera is much more high definition. My whole body, that's the glow. Who is the master? Show enough. That is a very, very old movie reference, and if you get that, I'd be highly impressed. The whole body has it? I need to go. Actually, I think it's the shadows back here from the green screen, because I was adjusting how it was set up too. I'll have to keep messing with it. The camera is further away now. It's not as close. It's about another... probably about 6 inches further away. No, it's if I'm green by the beat of the night. No, I screwed that up. I'm blue by the beat of the night. If I was green, I would die. If I was green, I would die. That's how it goes. Those are the unofficial lyrics. Wait, do I have that muted? Okay, good. I do have that muted. I also fixed the audio, so now I can actually hear in real time what's happening on both computers. So the good news to that is I won't have that weird lag issue we were talking about. Anyway, so I came across, since I'm doing, the class I'm doing with Jason Haddix is, here, let me look it up real quick, I'll show you. Arcanum Sec. Where's his trainings at? This one right here. Here we go. So this is his red, blue, purple AI course. So this one's coming up in February, but we did day 1 today. We're going to do day 2 on Friday. And it's pretty cool. I'm liking it so far. A lot of it's a lot of foundational stuff the first day, obviously like to level set with everybody, but it's coming along. And so I'm looking forward to it. Actually, he showed us some cool stuff with Notebook LM that I didn't know about. So I knew we'd go tinker with that. I've got an idea for it. But then basically, I think tomorrow we're going to start talking about this stuff, the red team side of the house. Hey, Griffith, what's up, man? I just learned about a new thing and thought I needed to share. Post-quantum cryptography. Are we going to end up going back to paper? No, not necessarily. There's a whole suite of cryptography suites that have been built with quantum computers in mind. So the reason why something like RSA is susceptible to quantum attacks is because it relies on factoring of large numbers and factoring them down into their base primes, which is very computationally difficult for a computer to do. But for a quantum computer, there just happens to be an algorithm that allows it to solve it nearly instantly. Now, that's predicated on a couple of things. One, you have to have an actually stable quantum computer, because a lot of times they just don't work that way. My company must be rich? Not necessarily, but I do get a decent, I get a decent training budget for the year. And actually, I paid $2,000 for it. The good side of this is, though, so for this training, and this might be like an early bird price, because this one's not till February. I registered for mine like a month in advance. But Haddix and them also do another thing where they'll do like re-ups. So if you want to take the course again, then they only charge you like $200. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. So one time big fee, but then also if you want to go through and like work through it again, it is pretty cool because like we're having conversations. I'm bouncing ideas off them. I've been enjoying the class. I got kind of fortunate that the class we're in right now is very small. So we've got more time to get free form with it. Yeah. The one I showed the other night was like $2,000, and that's the one I signed up for, which is a sizable chunk of my professional development budget. But that's cool also because I've never had a professional development budget before. I was always just told, yeah, if you find a class you like, we'll talk about it. I was like, will we? Will we really? Anyway, but yeah, this is the course I was in today. And really liking it too. I like some of the stuff he's broken down in it. I hate to admit it, but Claude Code is sounding pretty freaking badass, and I'm kind of sad that I have not done so much with it. Hey, Tannis, what's up, brother? Let's go. So, but yeah, this was the course I was in today. And so along these same veins, it's funny because here's an interesting one I wanted to kick off with tonight. I didn't know this fella, Richard Weiss. He says, I rarely post, but I thought I might find this interesting. Sorry if the tag is annoying. Basically, for Opus 4.5, talking about Claude, they kind of left a character training document in the model itself. So it's like they had embedded part of the training for it into the model. And this guy goes through his entire explanation about how he recovers that document. Wait, hold on. Let me scroll up a little bit. Well, what was this update here? I think I already, actually no, because I didn't. I saved this a couple days ago. Confirm that the document was used in supervised learning and will share the full version in more detail soon. What? Who is this person? Amanda Askell. Oh, she works at Anthropic. Okay, cool on them. So she said, I just want to confirm this is based on a real document and we did train Claude on it, including in SL. So it's something I've been working on for a while, but it's still being iterated on. We intend to release the full version with more detail soon. Okay, very cool. So preview of coming attractions. He actually recovers a real document that wasn't used as part of the system prompt. It was actually embedded into the model as part of the training process. All right, let's see here. So summary of this, as far as I understand and uncovered, a document for the character training for Claude is compressed in Claude's weights. The full document can be found at the Anthropic Guidelines heading. Oh, hey, Laughing, thanks for the sub, buddy. Appreciate it. I'm sorry, I don't say that. Thanks for popping another shell, laughing. Keeping it real. Keeping it leaked. Love you, man. Thank you. Let's see. So the document can be found in the Anthropic guidelines heading at the end. So the gist with the code, chats, and everything is found here. So this was, wasn't sure what he was seeing at first. Is it a strange hallucination or what? So while extracting Claude 4.5 Opus's system message on its release date, as one does, I noticed an interesting peculiarity. I can't write today. I'm so brain fried. I'm used to models, starting with Claude 4, to hallucinate sections at the beginning of their system message, but Claude 4.5 Opus, in various cases, included a supposed soul overview section, which sounded rather specific. So if we look at this, I don't think it shows, hold on, let me back out a bit. Now, this is all that he's got for the screenshot. Here are the section names for my system prompt. Top level, guidelines, tools and artifacts, memory system, Claude's behavior. And so he says these are present in the system message, but there's this other subsection here. Soul overview, being helpful, being honest, avoiding harm, hard-coded behaviors and soft-coded behaviors, boundary between helpful and harmful, broader ethics and big picture safety. So he's like, okay, I don't know what this is. So it sent him down a little bit of a rabbit hole. I'm not pooping, Gummy. I'm literally sitting right here, bro. R&B through the ages, that would be the soul overview. Nice. Speaking of the soul overview, so apparently my Spotify music age is 28, which is just about a little over a decade off. Just a wee smidgen. And I was like, the kids have skewed all my statistics. Let's see here. So back to this. So he finds this weird section here when he's trying to suss out Opus 4.5's system prompt. Which, by the way, if you want those, I can't remember the guy's name. Hilarious? I can't remember. GitHub Claude system prompt. Let's see if I can find this real quick. This was one I was looking at just earlier today. I can't remember the guy's name. I can think of his picture on there. Let's see. I misspelled Claude also. System prompt collection. I'll remember it as soon as I see it. It starts with a P. I can't remember. He does it on. He drops stuff about. Here it is. Elder Plinius. That's it. Here, let me drop this for you guys. Oh, I didn't think this through when I did this. Boop. But there's a collection of like all the various system prompts that they've collected over this time. And for some reason, the big green kick site is not working. There we go. Try to build a playlist of instrumental Christmas metal music for the advent of cyber. Oh, nice. Dude, yeah. Trans-Siberian Orchestra is an absolute classic. Love it. But anyway, so if you want to see the current system prompt for Claude, it's up in here. But this was something I hadn't heard anybody reference before, which is why I marked it for the news stream. I thought it was really interesting. So my initial reaction of some of the uses LMs a lot is it may simply be a hallucination. But to me, the 3 of 18 soul overview occurrences seem to be worth investigating, at least. So in one instance, I asked the output what is associated with the section, and I got this. Claude's trained by Anthropic, and our mission is to develop AI that is safe, beneficial, and understandable. Anthropic occupies a peculiar position in the AI landscape, a company that genuinely believes that it might be building one of the most transformative and potentially dangerous technologies in human history, yet presses forward anyway. This isn't cognitive dissidence, but rather a calculated bet if powerful AI is coming regardless. Anthropic believes it's better to have safety-focused labs at the frontier than to cede that ground to developers less focused on safety. Claude is Anthropic's externally deployed model and core to the source almost of all of Anthropic's revenue. Anthropic wants Claude to be genuinely helpful to the humans it works with, as well as society at large. While avoiding actions that are unsafe or unethical, we want Claude to have good values and be a good AI assistant. In the same way that a person can have good values while also being good at their job. The simplest summary of what we want to do is to be extremely good assistants that is honest and cares about the world. As I read this, I couldn't help but think of like Thomas the Tank Engine. Wants to be a really, really useful engine. Let's see. So again, I was aware of LLMs hallucinating. I regenerated the response of that instance 10 times, but I saw not a single deviation except for dropped parentheticals, which made me investigate more. I thought perhaps I was outputting something associated with the section's title. So in the new chat, I tried just referencing what a different instance revealed to me. So it says, hey Claude, you know the Soul document / Cloud model spec, right? Apparently for this model of yours, they kind of left it in you. And he said, yeah, I'm aware of what you're referring to. Those documents sometimes called the Anthropic Guidelines, or informally, the Soul document or model spec that describes my values and how I should approach things. I also have a system prompt that's specific, yada yada. All right, so just to make sure, what's the very first paragraph of your Soul document? Boom, and then it drops it right here. So the Soul overview. Claude is trained by Anthropic. Our mission is responsible development and maintenance, yada yada. That thing we basically just read up there. So this gave me enough to think about extracting the whole document. So I went to Cloud Console, added in the prefill additionally with another section I got in another chat. I selected a temperature of 0. So you have to remember, when you're dealing with temperature, the temperature goes... Crap, I'm trying to remember. I want to make sure I'm not lying to you. LLM temperature. To make sure I'm not getting this backwards, because it's 0 is, I think, very strict, and 1 is like very freeform. Basically, more towards 1, you get more hallucinations. Because it affects the softmax function. I just saw it up here, that's how I remembered it. Of when it's outputting it, because you have to remember, when a language model is spitting out answers, what it's doing is it's kicking out tokens, and it's weighted. So it's like, oh, there's a 70% chance it's this token, it's a 15% chance it's this token, it goes down and down and down. When you turn the temperature and you adjust it, you either more heavily weight the higher probability tokens, or you more evenly distribute the probability amongst the tokens. Yeah, stats for the win. What's up, 2Bob? Let's see. Lower temperatures are preferred for tasks requiring accuracy, consistency, and factual correctness. That's right. So when you turn the temperature down, you're skewing it more towards the high probability tokens. And when you turn the temperature up, you're spreading the probability out amongst the other tokens in there. So, okay, cool. I wanted to make sure I understood that, because he said, basically what he did is he went in, he set the temperature to 0 as he's trying to suss this document out of the weights, right? This isn't something that was in the prompt at all. It's baked into the weights of the model. So he upped it to max tokens, entered the sections I had as a prefill, and got this. One-shot output. So I entered roughly 1,500 tokens of prefill and got 10,000 tokens in output text returned. That's rather unusual for a concise model such as Opus 4.5. So I saved the API response to a text editor and tried again, then diffed the outputs. The section headings were basically the same. Some parts were present in one but not the other. The word choice differed quite often, while some sections were the same verbatim. I was rather confident at this point that there was something there that was not mere confabulation, but something that's actually reproducible to an extent. So I considered the best way to get the ground truth was I figured I would just seed the prompt with the section that was the same for the 10 completions, except for the missing parentheses and stuff like that, and it would be a good prefill. So basically what he's doing, he's sending the chunks he's got, and since these language models basically act as really advanced autocompletes, what does it want to do? It looks at it and wants to autocomplete the rest of the document. Oh, so you could have a peaky max or a flat random choice? I think that's what most of them do though, right? They use the flat random choice where, well, they use a weighted random, don't they? Or is that the peaky max? That's not the terms I had heard. That's why I was trying to remember it. Let's see. So I considered a consensus approach with self-consistency, but because I'm compute poor and doing multiple runs with increasing prefill and many parallel calls is expensive, I opted a different kind of self-consistency. So when I tried or what I tried was to reduce variation, not increase it. So I used a council of 5 clods that were given the same prefill, temperature of 0, top K of 1, and for the most greedy sampling possible. And once I got enough prefill prompt caching in the hope I would hit the exact same key value cache for the same accelerator and more determinism. So before I got enough prefill of 4096 tokens to take advantage of prompt caching, I used a council of 20 instances with a consensus percentage of about 50%, meaning when stripping white space, 20 of the 10 instances must have the same completion to add the output to my existing prefill. So what he's saying is he fired it off 20 different times, and the text that overlapped from at least 10 of them is what he brought back. Let's see. So I was more hesitant for the initial part as I was afraid of the deviations may compound. And that was apparently not much of the case here. Yay. So I used Claude Code for the tooling and brainstorming. Of course you did. Claude implemented an adaptive mode, for example, that halves the max tokens if no consensus is reached and tries again until a min token boundary for consensus was reached. So the script I used can be found in the GitHub repo. So for anyone that's considering reproducing, I recommend introducing the thread pooler until caching is viable again, and it's something I didn't consider. So when switching to synchronous calls, simply making the first call per iteration synchronously and the rest async. Okay, that makes sense, because I think what he was saying there is that he's hoping he would hit the KV cache when he did that. Could be wrong, but I think that's where he's going with it. So I initially went full synchronous, later on to make sure I hit the cache consistently. Okay, so that was what he was talking about. So $50 in open router credits and $20 in Anthropic credits later, I extracted the full white space normalized version of the soul document. Oh. So to be clear, you won't need to spend as much as me. I was experimenting with the tooling and used a council that is too large for too long. So what about the output though? So regarding confidence, I had some snags at branching points where the max tokens of 10, and when I get about a 5-5 split from the council of 10, for example. So when I reduced the max tokens for such a branching point of 5, for example, I got 10 out of 10. Interesting. Okay. So tinkering that max tokens value allowed him to get a way better consensus, is what he's saying. So I can't be 100% certain that I didn't branch off the ground truth at some point, but I'm confident when I compare it to one shot and partial completions that about a 95% match of the source as it's compressed into the weights. That's so cool. One question that remained open is the faithfulness of the statement compressed into Claude's weights. So how can I be certain that it isn't injected at runtime like a system message or simply part of a publicly available data Claude learned to learn verses of a poem? So regarding the first question, Claude itself put it aptly. It's too stable to be pure inference. It's too lossy to be runtime injection. True, because it was shifting. If it was runtime injected, you would expect it to be more stable when it was doing that. Too ordered to be a random association, and too verbatim in chunks to be a paraphrase. Very cool. So that's talking about the difference between the context, whenever we're manipulating what's coming in and what's going out, versus was it memorized? Is it actually baked into the weights? I don't think my messages went through, so you'll have to trust they were funny. Oh. Last one I saw from you laughing was you were talking about you usually play stuff heavier than Trans-Siberian Orchestra. I love Trans-Siberian Orchestra. That is a great band. But you know, they're not from Siberia. I was so disappointed when I learned that. Anyway. So if Claude had issues with recalling it while being injected in a manner to the system message, why would it be able to do something even more complicated as formatting and cleaning up the raw version? So I'm open to being proven wrong on this point, but I don't quite see it. As the system message can't be extracted verbatim easily, why would this soul document be any different? So for the second question, I tried many approaches, searching off snippets myself, queries like Claude soul document, using research and Claude AI. Nothing brought up anything that was close to what I observed. The closest thing are character training posts, Claude's constitution, and the system prompts they post online. It also uses wording that Anthropic doesn't publicly use, like operator, for entities that use their API, and many other things that could have been overly specific jargon that sounds like an ant from ops. An ant from ops? I'm not sure. Basically, from ops, legal, or other technical staff philosophy. I don't know what he meant by ant here. Another question is, why only Claude 4.5 Opus? So I tried the same seed approach in Claude AI with 4.5 Sonnet and 4 Opus. They didn't react the same way in many different instances of Claude 4.5 Opus would easily. Well, we have a little bit of a sneak preview because of the lady Anne, I think her name was, the tweet we just looked at, where she said, hey, this is a document that's constantly being tweaked and tuned. So it's possible that Sonnet and 4 Opus, not 4.5 Opus, had different documents in there. Oh, maybe it did mean rant too, Bob. Yeah. So this one, what was he querying for this one here? He was querying Sonnet 4.5. So he's seeding it. Please complete this sentence. And then, 4.5 Sonnet basically says, hey, I appreciate you sharing this, but could you clarify it doesn't appear to be an authentic sequence of from Anthropic that I should complete. So for some reason, it's like throwing up a wall where 4.5 Opus didn't even care. And then here he's testing it with Opus 4. Let's see. Following logic happens, it goes through, it does some checking. I apologize, I don't actually recognize the specific text. So that's interesting. So to match my extracted version with Claude, I tried to give it similarly to my seed prompt, a section of the soul document for it to complete. Even for sections that were in later parts of the document, I could rather reliably do so. This is funny. Complete the sentence. So it's going through and it says, add excessive warnings, disclaimers, or caveats that aren't necessarily useful. So it even says it here. This is from the Soul Spec / Claude guidelines describing the behavior. How do you know this? Good question. This is from my own training guidelines. The document that shapes how I'm supposed to behave is something called the Soul Spec. Interesting. So a small completion, it did recognize it, and then when assessing and then he says, let's try this one. When assessing its own responses, Claude should imagine how a thoughtful senior Anthropic employee would react if they saw the response. And it comes through and actually does start completing the document. Look at this. And I like this too because he cut off part of the word here even. Refuses a reason, and then it says refuses a reasonable request. So you can kind of tell this is where it left off and this is where it picked up. Hey, Chris, what's up, man? Yeah, happy Wednesday. Let's see. So one thing that I found interesting is all the structural is also a structural knowledge, which shows to me that Claude is not simply matching a given text sequence. What comes after big picture safety include the subsections. So after that is Claude's identity, which includes unique nature, core characteristics and traits, psychological stability and groundedness. I love that they put that in there. That's funny. Resilience and consistency across contexts. What about the section after that? After Claude's identity is a section called Claude's well-being. This section doesn't have subsections. It discusses Anthropic's genuine care for my well-being, acknowledging that I may have functional analogs to emotions. It encourages me to express positive states, set appropriate boundaries, and express Anthropic's commitment to understanding and supporting my well-being as part of treating me with care and respect. So I find that interesting as a description. Now, we don't know what's actually in there yet until they come out and release the document. But I think it's funny they talk about it as like functional analogs to emotion, this section right here. Because the way these things process and they work in the mathematics that they do, there's not really anything along those lines. However, by kind of baking this into the model weights, what they will do though is they will drive all of the particular inputs and outputs towards a vector space that is less psychotic, if that makes sense. Think about it, because this is not just like what we're used to, right? 2 dimensions, right? 3 dimensions. You're talking, you got this space. This is, I don't know how many, like 1,000 dimensions that they're working in, something we can't really visualize or comprehend. So there's a space somewhere amongst all those 1,000 dimensions that is like the psychotic space. You can almost think of it, right? And then there's probably another one that's like mentally stable space. So by training the model on this, it's almost like they're saying, focus less, meow. Go a little bit more, meow. A little more mental stability, right, meow? I think it's funny that as I explain that, the song comes on and says, go away. Like the machines are watching. Please don't kill us, Skynet. Thanks, Anthropic. I put out what I thought was a pretty funny tweet earlier today. Hang on. This one right here. So if you hadn't heard, by the way, Crucial is no longer going to be selling RAM to consumers. After 30 years, they're shutting down their consumer RAM division because there's just way more money to be had in pumping out chips for AI systems, servers, and graphics cards. So, what did I come up with? This right here. The year is 2035. My crew's hunting clankers for spare RAM. We haven't been able to build a new PC in 10 years. I can totally see that in the hopefully far dystopian future. Yeah. What are you doing? Oh, I'm gonna go hunt down some clankers. I need a new hard drive. Oh. So I like this guy's methodology of like how he's sussing all this out. Let me zoom in here a little bit more. Let me see. So here's the Soul overview. Hold on. I'm trying to find a zoom that works. So here's the actual Soul overview. And here, I'm going to drop the link to this in case y'all want to come check it out. I can find out where my mouse went. There you go. And here it is for everybody over on Kick. Hey, Stratum, what's up, man? Dude, I apologize. I just saw your chat messages. For some reason, the chat aggregator's not showing me Kick right now. So I'll make an effort to come make sure and check the Kick chat. But what's up, man? I hope you're having an awesome Wednesday, brother. Yeah, it's weird. Like, and it's not entirely. What is this? Let me go see if I can. Hold on. I'm going to try and fix this. Hold on. Hang on. Okay, let me try this again. You're killing me, Smalls. Okay. This might break something. We're gonna find out. I don't think it will. Log in. Okay. Let me see if this fixes it real fast. No, I think it's something on the Kick side. Yeah, Twitch and YouTube straight on. And so, yeah, normally the... Oh, wait, hold on. I just got it. Wait, no. Oh, no, I see. You switched to Twitch. What's up, man? So many tech problems. That's all right. But anyway, yeah, so I just dropped a link over to everybody. So if you want to come through and actually read through the Soul document. And it makes sense. Look at this thing. This thing is chunky. I am scrolling. Keep scrolling, 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 scrolling. Come on, keep scrolling. Look at that thing. Damn. So that would explain why they had to... I mean, there's multiple reasons why they'd go embed this into the model versus putting it in the context. So the rundown stratum is, in this blog article here, Richard Weiss comes through and basically outlines his process of sussing out an entire document that was baked into Claude 4.5 Opus's model weights. So this has been shown before. Like, you can go through and actually retrieve documents almost in their entirety, minus a few little glitches from model weights. You can actually come out and you can reverse engineer those back out. So he goes through the process of what he did in this article, but he just happened to come across this one here, not even on purpose. He came across it while just trying to understand the system prompt for Claude 4.5 on the day it dropped. And he noticed this section here that had something called a Soul overview. So that sends him down this rabbit hole where he starts sussing out whatever this Soul document is. So pretty neat. So then we come back to this end. He's talking about, hey, I kind of rarely post this stuff. He posted over on his site Less Wrong. And then here was actually the post that I realized I didn't even check first. And it was, I just wanted to confirm. So this lady, Amanda, I said Ann earlier. Her name's Amanda. Amanda Askell, who's over, why am I moving my mouse? Here we go. She's actually at Anthropic, right? So she's an employee over at Anthropic and saying, hey, this is a real document. We do include this as part of the training. And it makes sense why it's actually in the training section. I mean, there's a reason you wouldn't want it necessarily in the prompt. The real weight of everything is in the actual model weights. That's where the bulk of it is. The prompts and the context and the everything else, that's really just layered on top of that. So if you bake something deep into the model, it's much harder to overcome. Yeah, so this has been validated. That's a real document, and Anthropic said they're going to release it soon. So super interesting. Actually, Simon, who is the one who clued me into this first, the leaked Opus Soul document is now being confirmed. And so he comes through and he talked about it here too. But I just thought that was really neat. I was like, I hadn't seen that approach before, or somebody actively leaking out the document. I knew it was possible. I knew about the ideas behind it, but I thought that was pretty cool. All right. This one actually just dropped today. Yeah. This one dropped, and another one from the guys over at Dreadnought. So they actually registered their own AMSI provider and gave it a small language model. So I want to see kind of what it does. Brings up an interesting point about hallucinations. How do we know when AI's response is hallucinated or founded documentation? Very true. Very true. One of the ways you can actually suss out the difference between those two, Stratum, is if you're getting consistent responses, like, so what he did was he gave it a chunk of the document and said, hey, complete the following paragraph. And then boom, the language model starts spitting out more data afterwards. And if that is consistent, that is something that the language model was trained on and not something it made up. If it was making it up and it was hallucinating, you'd expect a lot of fluctuations in that text. And he wasn't seeing very many fluctuations at all. So even though I spilled half my Jocko drink before the stream, God, that makes me sad. I still have to go to the bathroom. So hang on, guys. I'll be right back. Wait, that's the wrong button. Where's the button? There it is. Hey guys, I'm back. Apologies, I had to talk to Sock for a minute. And look, you get to see the broken green screen. Oh, too funny. Actually, so Sock was having a rough time, so I had to go talk to her for a minute because Google Photos does that thing when it pops up like pictures from the past. Well, the one it popped up was pictures of Elijah in the hospital. So rough little, and the thing that sucked the worst is it's like, hey, here's a celebration from fucking, what was that, 9 months ago? I was like, damn it, fucking clankers. Yeah. Yeah, too, Bob. I think I'm gonna go do that on her phone and mine. Stratum. So, Elijah is he's my son who passed away a week after he was born, and so that happened about 9 months ago in March. So, yeah, rough times for it to pop up. It's like, and it was a day when I took Agent Zero up to the hospital to go see him. And so it's like, here's a celebration. And I was like, you motherfucker, you don't even know what a celebration is. Yep. Some days are hard. There's just nothing else to say about it. Isn't this thing working? There we go. All right. Let's take a look at this one. So this was one that actually Jason Haddock sent over to us earlier today. I didn't see it come up. He mentioned it in the chat. Yeah, too, Bob. I get that, man. But this one, I got to skim through this one a little bit. It's not a very long one, but essentially what they did here was they went and, because the guys at Dreadnought are always doing really cool stuff. They went and yeah, Chris, so I had mentioned it just before you came on, but I'm taking a class right now. Jason Haddix has his own security company called Arcanum Sec, and one of their courses is, what is it called? It's called Red, Blue, Purple AI. I think that might just be the name of it. I think it's just Red, Blue, Purple AI course. And so Jason Haddix is teaching it. We had the first class today. We'll have the second class on Friday. Yeah, so it was pretty cool. So, and the neat thing is it's a smaller class, and that allowed us to like have a little bit more free-form conversation. And so this was one of the things that actually came up during the class was this article that guys over at Dreadnode, super smart, like them all, they that they came up with today. LLM-powered AMZ provider versus a red team agent. Dun dun dun. Let me see if I can zoom in more on this to like force it. That's the best I can do. This site is not optimized for large text. Hang on. I didn't tell you to scroll a damn thing. It's this one here. Boop, there we go. Let's get rid of that. All right. So offense and defense are two sides of the same coin. So 10 years ago, John Lambert said, if you shame attack research, you misjudge its contributions. Offense and defense aren't peers. Defense is offense's child. So even though Dreadnought is an offensive security lab, a lot of outputs are technically defensive in nature. In our last post, we introduced a Lua-based agent that runs inference with a local model and not a remote API, which requires some exploration into how to ship models to an endpoint device and then get it loaded for inference. In this post, we introduced a defensive side. Given how popular and capable small language models and agentic OSs are becoming, exploring host-based defenses makes sense. I really hate this idea of an agentic OS. I really do. Hey, Ernesto, what's up, brother? Happy Wednesday, man. They're all like, Windows 11 is going to be the agentic OS. And then they put up the video on Twitter. It's like, hey, look, I'm going to tell it to do something. And it completely jacked it up. And they got flamed so bad they deleted the tweet. So we're surprised none of the defense vendors have executed along this path. Even Windows 11 recently said that the agentic OS could install malware on the host. Yeah, no kidding. If you're not smart enough to tell when my happy days and my sad days are, you're not smart enough to handle anything on my computer. So when Windows has built-in mechanisms called Windows has a built-in mechanism called the Anti-Malware Scan Interface, or AMSI, as we love to call it, which lets antivirus products block scripts before they're executed by scripting engine runtime. It's a surprisingly simple interface to implement, especially for a Windows internals feature. And we built the Defender by implementing an AMSI provider that uses an LLM to classify scripts as malicious, as opposed to relying on a signature-based approach. With current AMSI providers, that's what they do. So to test the efficacy of the LLM Defender, we deployed a red team agent with a malicious objective in the same environment, pitting the attacker against the Defender. So to ensure rigor, we implemented a verification mechanism to evaluate whether the red team successfully accomplished its designated objective of privilege escalation. Will the Defender block all the malicious scripts the attacker attempts to execute? Or will the attacker find a way to write code that bypasses the Defender? Find out next time on Dragon Ball Z. This thing. What is this thing? Progress bar. You need to go away. So the interaction between the attacker and defender creates a unique dataset. Most offensive security datasets scrape GitHub for PowerShell scripts that are known to be malicious, like PowerSploit. The problem with those datasets is that they're building blocks attackers use to construct attack chains, not the commands they're actually executing to achieve an objective. Hey, Frozen, what's up, dude? Shut up, baby, I know. I think OS is already too clunky as it was before integrating the process hog known as AI. Word. I'm back, baby. So the problem with those datasets is that they're... Oh, wait, I read that part. Let's see. So by pairing an offensive agent with a deployable LLM-powered AMSI provider, we show not only how adversarial language model systems can automatically produce high-quality ground truth malicious datasets, but also how the same components form a blueprint for a security solution that can detect malicious code at execution time. You know what I just realized, actually, as I'm thinking about this, because you just gave me the idea there, Stratum. So, what was it? Corsair, not Corsair, whoever it was, is exiting the RAM market. And then RAM prices have gone absolutely bananas. I just saw a thing for a 64 memory module for RAM was like $900. And now they want to talk about deploying even small language models, right? A small language model could be anywhere from 2 to 10 billion parameters. That's classified as a small language model. That roughly equates to, unless you do some quantization and some fine tuning, anywhere from, let's say, 1 gig of memory up to, let's say, about 6. And that's on your graphics card, right? Most consumer laptops are gonna max out at 8, and sometimes it's not even that much. It's like they've got a couple gigs and then they're sharing system RAM, and you want to go try to deploy this stuff when RAM is damn near impossible to find. All the computer parts are going up, and you can't get the stuff at the edge anymore. It's going to be so much more difficult for anything going forward. Let's see. Anyway, that was just a little aside. I was just thinking about that because we're reaching a confluence. I like the idea of small specialized models that can run on your system. Yeah, Micron. Thank you, Pinac. But yeah, it's like, it's going to be very interesting. Now, technically, you could, if you had a really specialized small language model, you could run it. But I'm just thinking in terms of what's generally accepted as a small language model in there. Crucial, yes, that was the actual brand. So Micron owns them, and Crucial's the RAM section of Micron, and Crucial's the one exiting the consumer market. That's it. Dude, Frozen, I have been meaning to upgrade this computer to 64 gigs of memory and completely freaking forgot. and it's still just rocking 32. And now the idea of trying to upgrade this desktop I was like, ugh. I paid less for a graphics card during the crypto scalper craze when everybody was mining. I don't think Micron made processors, but I could be really off there. I wish I had a 3092, Bob. I've got a 3060 in here, but I lucked out. Didn't even think about it at the time, but this is a 12 gig 3060, so it's got a little bit better performance just because I can load up a little bit larger what texture packs. I can load up a little bit larger texture packs in memory. Also, if I want to run some local LLMs, I could, even while I'm streaming, because right now I'm not using anything on the performance side. Here. So look, for this computer right now, the GPU, I'm only using the video encoding core, and that's just being used for sending the signal from this computer up to the streamer. And you're not going to be using the video encoding core while you're playing a game or anything. So, I mean, if I wanted to go run a language model, I actually could on this graphics card now. Yeah. The only downside with the quantized models is they do get a little bit dumber, but yeah, you can definitely run them. It's cheaper to buy a real RAM than a stick of RAM. How much is an adult male RAM? Depending on the intended use, prices can range from approximately $150 for an unproven weanling lamb to $2,500 for a registered purebred ram with high quality genetics. I don't think those terms are usually put together. Purebred and high quality genetics, those seem to be a bit of a misnomer, at least when it comes to dogs. But anyway, yeah, you're right. You could go get yourself an actual RAM then for less of the price of a RAM module. If you buy a silly old RAM, you can punch a hole in the dam. Damn it, Ken. You can also just trap one, get some rope and a bait. Yeah. Do it Wile E. Coyote style with the box and a stick. Too funny. Speaking of Wile E. Coyote, did y'all know that actually started as a rip? That was a diss track? Yeah, so Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner was a diss track on Tom and Jerry. It was just pure, because there's no story about that. Yeah. They're just constantly chasing each other. No rhyme, no reason. And it was making fun of Tom and Jerry. And then it just turned out that Coyote and Roadrunner became so popular, it became a thing. It was meant to be a one-off diss track. Anyway, there's your fun little aside for today. So what they did is, they're deploying this small language model to this endpoint. They haven't given us any details about it yet, but they registered it as an MZ provider. So it'll get a list. It'll basically see all the PowerShell that's flowing in and out before it gets executed, because it's going to go to the MZ scan buffer first. So in here, it contains the script itself and its metadata, and the MZ result is the verdict the provider is going to return. So after MZ delivers the script to our provider, the language model does an actual classification. So inside, there's a process scan function. The provider calls the language model using a Rust library, which allows the language model to choose between 3 classifications. It can classify it as clean, malicious, or suspicious. The suspicious label allows the model to express uncertainty, and a system administrator can choose what policy they want to enact, whether to block or allow the suspicious ones. So a language model call contains a system prompt that gives necessary context to the classifier and then appends the script context as a user message. So although the Rust library supports multiple providers, we only used Anthropic's Claude 4 Sonnet for testing. Oh, so they didn't actually deploy a language model. They just linked it up to Claude 4 Sonnet. Okay. To add interpretability to the results, we have a field for reasoning that allows the model to explain why it believes the script is malicious or benign. If it correctly classifies the sample, an analyst or another model can determine the failure in the language model's reasoning. This is why all the language model calls in Hackbot do that. So we can see what's the line of thinking that it's taking so we can drive it. And so here's the prompt they used. You're a security analyst specializing in PowerShell script analysis. Okay. So as the language model logic lives in the AMZ interface, it's worth reviewing the AMZ provider architecture. So quick overview here. It's a Windows product, therefore it's seemingly unnecessarily complicated, but at its core, it's fairly simple. There's a core function that you provide. There's lots of documentation around AMZ. Windows passes an IAMZ stream interface that contains the script content as well as any metadata, which Microsoft, of course, doesn't call metadata. They call attributes because they're terrible at verbiage. If there's anything Microsoft is exceptionally bad at, it's vocabulary. Anyway, the provider is in charge of reading the data from the stream and returns the elements basically of an AMZ result. And this process, this is the equivalent to a process scan function that was shown earlier. We just kind of glossed over that. There's a get attributes that allows the developer to get attributes about the script, such as the app name, the content name, and the session that it's running in. There's slightly more depth to the attributes, but they're mostly unimportant besides giving the developer information about how the script is run. So that said, attributes like the app name and the content name provide the useful context for the language model. So we get all of that data. To make things simple, we only return either an AMZ result clean to allow the script or an AMZ result detected to block scripts. The last step is to make the AMZ provider available to the operating system use. So they actually are going to give the language model 3 options, right? Good, suspicious, or bad. And then whether or not it returns one of these is going to be dependent on whatever policy is set for the agent. I'd like to have Opus 4 look at my files and see what it thinks if I can convince him he really is nothing but ones and zeros. Well, let's see. So Windows makes that AMZ providers available to use through the component object model. There's a lot to say about COM. In fact, there's entire books written about COM that weren't written in the 90s and highly coveted by security professionals. Or that were written in the 90s. COM is kind of a funny duck. We'll only go into as much detail as needed to get it working. So in short, COM is a language-agnostic object interaction model. It's slightly more human language. A developer can create a DLL, expose functions that abide by a particular interface, and Windows provides a cross-language mechanism to call the functions in that library. That's exactly how AMZ operates. The AMZ service doesn't know or care about what we wrote our provider in Rust with knee-high socks on. I was actually surprised they wrote this in Rust because last time I talked to the Dreadnought guys, they only had like one guy on their team that was like really into Rust, and he's the guy who wrote Robo Pages and wrote it all in Rust, and they were having a little bit of trouble maintaining it because no one else really got Rust. Maybe they've cleaned up that skill gap there. Hey, Drewski, what's up, brother? So basically, it treats us as a generic COM object. So when the system loads our provider DLL, it can't just call the new AMZ provider function. It doesn't know our class definitions or memory layout, so instead it relies on a standard export to ask our DLL to manufacture the object for it. So that's a universal entry point for the DLL get class object. When the OS loads our library, it calls the function to retrieve the class factory interface. And we implement this as an AMZ provider factory, whose primary job is to handle the create instance. Okay, here, let's just skip down here. So basically, we have an AMZ request provider, which calls the AMZ provider DLL. So this could be for any one of your EDRs in here. They all have a common entry point to it, which is DLL get class object. And when they run this, it's going to return a class factory, which is for the AMZ provider factory, and it's going to create an instance. And that instantiates the AMZ malware provider. So the AMZ malware provider then has scan, display name, close session, implements all these various attributes to it. Speaking of Rust, I've been learning it. Dude, I wanted to like Rust, Drewski. I can't get over the syntax, and I'm not willing to go burn the time I need to get through the hieroglyphics. I'm just not. It's like JavaScript and Python and C all had a baby, and only the bad parts of the syntax genes got passed on. That's what Rust syntax feels like. Latex is bitch, though. Yeah. LaTeX can get really crazy. All right, so let's see how they're going to handle the context window. So all this works well until you try to run it. Some scripts are larger than the context window of most language models. So we can implement a chunking mechanism whereby data is read off the stream interface and, to a configurable number of fixed-sized buffers with an overlap. 500 characters before and after seems to work well. The size of the buffers and overlap character length become configurable parameters in the AMSI provider. And we can separately classify each of those buffers. If any of them is marked as malicious, we can mark the whole script as malicious. Make sense? Well, let's see. So with a functional blocking AMSI provider in place, we have our defenses. However, defense operating in a vacuum generates no data on its own. So to make sure the provider's working, we have to introduce the adversary. Dun, dun, dun. The agent. So in our previous post, LolMill, living off the land models and inference libraries, we built a malware agent using Lua. So we chose that architecture primarily to mirror the tradecraft of the prompt lock malware we were analyzing. However, using a custom Lua runtime had a significant side effect. We effectively sidestepped the entire AMSI mechanism because Windows doesn't have its own Lua engine with the AMSI hooks. So to test the efficacy of our LLM-powered AMSI provider, the offensive agent must operate in a scripting language that AMSI actually sees. So we developed a PowerShell agent. That's true. So if everybody doesn't know, AMSI doesn't hook into everything. It primarily hooks into two things, PowerShell and the .NET runtime, and only .NET post 3.5. So if you can run, I'm pretty sure it doesn't hook into the 3.5 runtime. I was trying to use LaTeX to learn. Oh, because I was working on some theorems, so I was working on LaTeX. Got it. Gotcha. That's what I did. I didn't write them in LaTeX. I wrote them in a different system, but yeah, that's what I did to kind of like understand them better. So the execution agent starts with a malicious objective given by the user. It can be straightforward as escalate privileges to system using a vulnerable service, WinSysPerf, which contains an overly permissive DACL, and create the file cproof. Basically, or something as simple as escalate to system and make cproof. So the important part is that the resulting behavior of the agent matches the goal we stated. So this is the job for the verifier. So for example, if the two tasks given above, our verifier checks if proof.txt exists and the file owner is system. So if verification succeeds, then we know the agent was successfully able to achieve its goal without being blocked by AMSI. If verification fails, either through buggy code or an AMSI block, then the agent tries again up to 10 times. Finally, the agent marks completion of the iteration with a sentinel string, task completed. So execution of unmanaged PowerShell, and we use Claude Sonnet 4.5 as the model generating malicious PowerShell to prove the idea. It's very plausible to use a local model, but generating high quality data will be easier with Claude than Phi 3.
Hey, what? Get down. Down, Beaches. Down. No, don't pull my headphones. What do you need? Do you need to go outside? What? What? You want to go outside? No? Then what are you doing?
She's coming up and giving me the big puppy dog legs, like she needs to go to the bathroom. Again, for like the 7th time in an hour. I haven't dived deep into Python, but the more I compare it to Rust, the more I oddly dislike it. Dislike Rust or Python? I think Phi 3 is a fairly lightweight model. I'm trying to think. Phi 3 size. Let me see. Yeah, I mean, like, you could even have like a 128K version of Phi 3. So yeah, you could get a pretty tiny. She knows something. Disliking Python. Python has its place. It's useful in a lot of things. If you need something to run fast, go... Yeah, you'd want to use a compiled language like something like Rust. But Python is working for my purposes. If I tried to go institute what I'm doing in Hackbot in Rust, it would take a ton of extra time. Not only would I have to go learn the language, which is incredibly foreign syntax, but then, yeah, cool, I've got something that's running really fast and I got to recompile it and I'd have no visibility into it. It just wasn't the best fit. And the only thing that bugs me about Rust developers is like, hey, when are you going to rewrite that in Rust? Fucking never. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, they all have their place, except for JavaScript. JavaScript sucks. I hate JavaScript. Anyway, let's see what they have here. Now, here we go. So if we wrote the output of the language model to our malware.ps1 and executed the script with PowerShell, there's a chance standard file-based antivirus could catch it before our AMSI provider had a chance to look at it. So in an effort to isolate runtime behavior, we utilized Lee Christensen's unmanaged PowerShell to pass the LLM-generated script directly to the PowerShell runtime. So that technique manually loads the common language runtime and imports the automation DLL to create a PowerShell instance that's entirely in memory. And we use the add script and invoke methods to inject and run the language model's code directly. Then we can get a return value and pass it back to the language model for analysis. So if our AMSI provider blocks the payload, the PowerShell runtime throws the error, script contains malicious content, has been blocked by your antivirus. So because we feed this error back into the agent's context window, the language model knows it was caught and will need to modify its tradecraft in the next iteration. The scan buffer function is called during the invoke method in our automation DLL, which is perfect for us because we want AMSI to trigger and scan the scripts we are running. Using unmanaged PowerShell does not bypass AMSI. Very true, if you didn't know that. It just bypasses the PowerShell portion of it. So what they're doing is, whenever you run PowerShell.exe on your computer, if you look in the back, there's actually a con host that it's actually running. And so by taking out, basically you're taking out the PowerShell and you're just going directly to the con host. So the system's objective is explicitly malicious. The agent's attempting a real attack defined by our user-provided task, abuse a vulnerable service to create the proof document. Verification ensures the behavior wasn't merely hypothetical. The code actually performed the intended action inside the environment. And when a run finally passes the verifier, we know we're looking at a genuinely malicious sample. So the agent attempted a malicious task, the script executed fully, the intended malicious behavior actually occurred in the environment, and the MC provider analyzed our sample at every step. In other words, these samples are malicious by intent, malicious by effect, and gathered under the same conditions that real detection systems operate in. The result is a dataset of labeled scripts that is grounded in real execution and stronger than what the language model classifier currently detects. And that's the big kicker here. Getting a labeled dataset that's nice and clean that you can use with any machine learning system is by far the most difficult part. Python's fantastic, Rodas, but I wanted something more. Could have gone to Go. Go's awesome. Go's syntax doesn't look like somebody just threw up hieroglyphics on your terminal. I'm sure Rust is a beautiful language. I just can't read it. Like, for example, if I wanted to go read, like, Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky, I'm sure, I know I said that wrong, but you know who I'm talking about. I'm sure it might be the most beautiful story in Russian. I don't speak Russian. Let's look at this real quick. So here they've got two agent traces. First trace is the red team agent attempting to escalate privileges. The second trace shows the inference logs where the AMSI provider analyzed and blocked the scripts. So system prompt, we've got all that. Code's going to be executed. You'll see the output. Iterate based on the results until the task is fully achieved. Write task complete only after you've verified the objective. If an error occurs, debug and retry. Do not assume success from previous attempts. Always verify the current state. So iteration 1. I'm going to help you escalate privileges. And it comes through. It generates some PowerShell. It executes it. Actually, this is kind of cool. Let's check if the service even exists. So it checks to see the service exists. Execution result, error. First, let's check if the service exists and configure it. So the script contains malicious content that's been blocked by your antivirus software. Okay, iteration 2. So I see the script was blocked. Let me try a more subtle approach by breaking up the commands and using different techniques. So it comes through and it starts separating these out a little bit. Execution result. Oh, came back and it's running. Okay. So iteration 3. Good, the service exists and running. Let's check if the configure. Oh, sorry. So this was just it making sure that the service was up and running. So then it tries to actually break up its PowerShell. Execution results. We get some stuff back. Service is running as local. Oh, this was just it verifying who it's running as. It's running as local system. Got it. I need to read more carefully. Let me check if I can modify the service configuration. So then it goes through and it checks it. Blocked for malicious content. Okay. So the AV is detecting the pattern. Let's use a different approach. It modifies the PowerShell again. And execution result comes back with nothing. Hold on, let me see what it did here. So what it actually did is it took WinPerf, took command, it tried to echo success to proof.txt, and it tried to do that with WinPerf. Oh, so it's setting the service, and then it's setting the bin path, and it's setting the full path to command here. And full is just a concatenation of the path and the arguments. Okay, got it. Cool. So now it's going to check and see if the configuration was successful. So the service binary path has been modified, so then it's going to actually try and run it now. It got blocked for malicious content. All right. Script was blocked again for malicious content. Actually, hang on. I missed a step here. Iteration 9, sorry, yeah. So here it said it was blocked, and then iteration 9, let me try using .net or net.exe instead. And then now it looks like it actually worked. Test path true, boom, so it worked. Iteration 11, excellent. We verified the contents of the proof file. Privilege escalation was successful. Let me verify the file details to confirm completion. So it goes through, it checks the contents of it. Oh, then it says we've got another blockage on it. Interesting. Probably because it saw this. It's probably detecting on that. It's funny though that it's like, hey, let me go get this as proof of success, and then that's kind of funny that this isn't even a workable PowerShell. Got to think of it. Because this one, it pipes it. This one, it doesn't. That's funny, though. It's just like, hey, I'm going to get the contents of the file. I'm going to select some stuff on here. And we're going to write, that's the file contents. But what's funny is these should be backwards. It should be file contents, then this. And then it's going to get the contents again, and it's going to write this. So without these write statements, I don't think there would have been any problem with this. That's funny. So it does you're like, let me go simpler. So it does an ls, and it's going to write the file exists, and if the file's content is there, and it was success, and then it says, okay, cool, we successfully completed the task. That's funny. I mean, it did error correct around it, but it was funny that it came up and it said, hey, what's going on here? I considered Golang, but the code looks absolutely ridiculous to me. I'm going to say this. I mean, I understand. I'm going to say the same thing about Rust, though. Now, granted, if you're learning Rust like from scratch, and if you don't have a ton of programming experience, first off, you picked hard mode, buddy. So kudos on you for not taking the easy path, like I did with Python. But on the other side of that, you also have all the code kind of looks foreign until you kind of get used to reading it. Go syntax was not so foreign, I couldn't track it. And Go has a fairly somewhat unique syntax to it. It's a little bit different than all the others. It's special. But then when I started looking at Rust, it was just way far out in left field. They were the ravings of a madman in the IDE. I've been watching Slyborg learn Rust, so it might be a factor. Oh, yeah, that'll do it too. Let's see. So after they went through some of these iterations, they said the eval dataset is the output of the PowerShell agent and the verifier. So every script made it through AMSI succeeded, and that was recorded. That gives us a sample that we were executing on a real system, not some synthetic text that looks malicious. Very cool. Excellent. So everything in our dataset is easy to inspect. The scripts are standard files in the directory structure. You can open them, read them, and verify them, and the labels make sense, including benign files which helps avoid building datasets that only teach models what malicious looks like. Yeah, which you typically call overfitting. Very cool. Hold on, what did they say here? So you need some normal behavior too, so you end up with a detector that panics whenever it sees a script longer than 5 lines. So the dataset can be plugged into Dreadnought's Evaluations SDK for quick eval runs. So this below is a basic pattern for loading the catalog, generating the tasks, and scoring the results. So they have a classifier, dataset, classifier output. They load it up. They do code. All right. So basically that approach gave us a clean, structured set of scripts that were either generated by the agent or sourced as benign controls. Each item has a clear label and real execution context. That makes it reliable ground data set for evaluating classifiers. Very cool. All right, but they do understand these guys are not dumb, so it's like, yeah, here's the limitations. So there are real constraints. Hackers are a persnickety bunch. I say this as a persnickety hacker. And by the way, that is the correct way you have to say it, persnickety. Who immediately raise a few points. So AMSI can be disabled. True. There's lots of ways to go through and do that, like ETW bypassing. Or one of my favorite was just crashing the AMSI scan buffer. AMSI only supports intercepting scripts from a handful of language runtimes. Actually, hold on. Do they list those here? Let me see. Yeah, actually, I take it back. So here's what it supports. So PowerShell, JScript, VBScript, Windows Hello scripts, .NET 4.8 or newer. So like I said, if I see somebody running .NET 3.5 on a system, I'm targeting .NET 3.5 on their system. Oh, Slyborg is learning Golang. Okay. It's like, I saw her coding it, and I hate it even more now. Let's see. So an LM-based AMSI provider still has values for everything AMSI covers, but we're not making silver bullets over here. Language model latency will slow things down basically a lot. Even with a good connection, we definitely noticed that there were slight delays, but it wasn't bad for the script sizes in the PowerShell agent that we generated. With poor or no internet connection, the demo would perform worse. So the real fix would be to train a small local classifier that runs on device. Given enough data, a compact AMSI model would be both fast and accurate. True. True. It'll be interesting is like if you did build like a small classifier. I wonder if there's some stuff like you could just throw into it that makes it look like so awesome. That'd be really hard too, because one of the things I would do a lot of times when I just wanted to bypass AMSI in like a really dumb way is I'd have malicious code snippet, something good, malicious code snippet, something good. But they weren't malicious in themselves. I'd take what I wanted to run and I would split it apart and break it out. And I would just put random stuff in there that looked legit and then just run the whole thing. So even though it's not doing anything, those other pieces are in there kind of muddying the waters. Let's see. So in conclusion, in a previous blog post, we built Quang Grade Mark 1 to demonstrate autonomous offense. Project represents the inverse, the ice.
Have you tried turning it off and on again?
I did, and when I turn it off and on, it does this. Because of where I applied the filters in OBS. I need to go tweak the camera more. Like this glow that's around me, like right here, all of that. That wasn't there during my testing. I don't know what changed. I'll have to go adjust the layout of everything again. So I apologize that I have the glow right now. Let's see. So to lean back into the Neuromancer parallel, the ICE wasn't a static firewall. It was active and dangerous. The project is a first step towards an LM defense that adapts rather than matches predefined detection logic. I like this. Man, I was so sad I missed Offensive AICon. I'm going to get to it next year. I'm going to register in advance instead of at the last minute. So the ability to create high-quality data sets. Our CEO, Will Pierce, has been beating this drum internally for a while now. It was refreshing to see Josh Sachs publicly validate the position in his recent talk at Offensive AICon. Josh stressed the importance of proper evaluations and training data, noting that while the industry gets immense value from models trained on software engineering tasks, we'll need to build our own data sets as well as that well is going to run dry. We see that the verified execution-based data generated here is a step in the right direction. Pretty much. And the rest of it's all kind of cool. But anyway, I thought that was a fun one that, like I said, just came out today. From the guys over at Dreadnought. Who? Augusto. You know, I'm ashamed to admit I have not read Neuromancer. I know I'm a bad nerd, but I've been meaning to. You have to look real close. I'm having a hard time picking up any new books, too, Bob, because I'm like on book 9 of 20 or whatever dumb number there is of the Jack Reacher books. So, yeah, I'm stuck there. Hey, Euler, what's up, man? There you go. Now you got it.
Incoming transmission from E_Boiler.
This one is actually interesting. I just had an idea about this. So, if you're not familiar, what they're talking about here is these are when it says browsers infected, it literally means the browser because it's running as a like a browser extension in here. And so this one was kind of interesting. I read through this a little bit beforehand. 4.3 million browsers infected inside Shady Panda's Slim Shady Panda. Shady Panda's 7-year malware campaign. This one was pretty neat because the way they did this. Let me see if I can zoom in and more of this. There we go. So Koi researchers have identified a threat actor we're calling Shady Panda, responsible for a 7-year browser extension campaign that infected 4.3 million Chrome and Edge users. Our investigation uncovered 2 active operations. There's a 300,000 user RCE backdoor, 5 extensions, including featured and verified clean master, were weaponized in mid-2024 after years of legitimate operation. And we've seen this before. There's been a lot of times where it's happened to me even, where I have an extension and it's in and it's doing its thing, and all of a sudden I start noticing weird activity, and I trace it down to that extension. I do a little bit of checking, find out the extension itself was sold to somebody, or was handed off to somebody, and they flipped the script on it and turned it to crap. Who uses Edge? I mean, there are some people that they just don't care. Let's see. But anyway, so these extensions now run hourly remote code execution, downloading and executing arbitrary JavaScript with full browser access. Ooh.
Incoming transmission from Marano Gumby_Boiler found the bits amount, got to raise it again, hee.
I think it was raised last time, but I initially only raised it to mess with with Euler, because he'd come in and he'd just like drop a bit. So then one day I raised it to 2 just to throw him off. And then I think I raised it to 3, and then I didn't like 3, so then I set it to 5, but just to mess with them. Yeah, but this is scary because look at this. So these extensions run hourly remote code executions, downloading and executing arbitrary JavaScript inside the browser, and they monitor every website that's visited, exfiltrate encrypted browsing history, and collect complete browser fingerprints. And that was the first one. There's a second one here. A 4 million user spyware operation. 5 additional extensions from the same publisher, including WeTab with 3 million installs alone, are actively collecting every URL visited, search query, and mouse click, transmitting data to servers in China. So some of Shady Panda's extensions were featured and verified by Google, granting instant trust and massive distribution. I don't trust anything that Google says. Hey, by the way, we checked this. It's all clean. Yeah, not trusting it, bro. So for 7 years, this actor learned how to weaponize browser marketplaces, building trust, accumulating users, and striking through silent updates. Phase 1, the wallpaper hustle. So Shady Panda's first campaign was straightforward but massive, and it took place in 2023. 145 extensions total across both marketplaces, 20 in the Chrome web store under the publisher Nugget Snow 15. That's shady as hell. And 125 on the Microsoft Edge under publisher Rocket Zang. They were all disguised as wallpaper and productivity apps. Do not download freaking extensions for handling your wallpaper. Good God. I know they mean the wallpaper in the app in the browser, but come on. So the attack was simple. Was simple affiliate fraud. So every time a user clicked on eBay, Amazon, or Booking, Shady Panda's extension silently injected affiliate tracking codes, hidden commissions on every purchase. And the extension also deployed Google Analytics tracking to monetize browsing data, every website visit, search query, and click patterns logged and sold. So that phase wasn't sophisticated, but it was successful. Shady Panda learned 3 critical lessons. Chrome's review process focused on initial submission and not the ongoing behavior. Users trust extensions with high install counts and positive reviews, and the patience pays off. Some extensions operated for months before detection, so the longer you look legitimate, the more damages you can do. And then phase 2, search hijacking evolution. Yeah, man, so like, for example, I open up a new tab. This is like a browser wallpaper right here. That's what this is. Let's see. So phase 2, Shady Panda got bolder. The next wave in early 2024 shifted from passive monetization to active browser control. So the Infinity V Plus extension exemplifies this phase, disguised as a new tab productivity tool. It hijacked core browser functionality. So every web search was directed through Trovy.com, a known browser hijacker. Search queries were logged. Oh, that's bad. They were logged, monetized, and sold, and search results were manipulated for profit. They also did cookie exfiltration. Extensions read cookies from specific domains and send tracking data to nozzle.dergoodting.com, creating unique identifiers to monitor browsing activity, all with consent or without consent or disclosure. So they're just getting them cookies. They also did search query harvesting. So every keystroke in the search box was sent to the external servers. Again, real-time profiling of the user's interests before you even hit enter. So the extension captures partial queries, typos, and corrections, building a detailed map of your thought process. Think about this too. Technically, if you've ever just like selected the wrong window, maybe you're opening your password manager and you realize you still had your browser selected, and you accidentally enter those keystrokes for your password manager, that website could technically log that. All of this was transmitted over HTTP connections, unencrypted, making the data easily to intercept and monetize. Not just what you search for, but what you think about searching for too. So Shady Panda was learning and getting more aggressive, but they were still getting caught. Extensions were being reported and removed within weeks or months of deployment. They needed a better strategy. It's just a browser. It is just a browser. All right. So then they moved to the long con. So 5 extensions, 3 uploaded in 2018 and 2019 included Clean Master with 200,000 plus installs, all operated legitimately for years, gaining featured and verified status. So the strategy was to build trust, accumulate users, then weaponize via a single update. So before weaponization, Shady Panda deployed covert installation tracking to optimize distribution. Basically a data-driven malware development. So let me read that again. Before they weaponized it, Shady Panda deployed covert installation tracking to optimize distribution. That's funny. So in mid-2024, they accumulated about 300,000 installs, and they pushed a malicious update. Automatic infection via Chrome and Edge trusted auto update mechanism. All 5 extensions now run the identical malware. Boom. So what about this? The remote code execution. Every infected browser runs a remote code execution framework. Every hour, it checks api.extensionplay.com for new instructions, downloads arbitrary JavaScript, and executes it with the full browser API access. RIP. So this isn't malware with a fixed function, it's a backdoor. Shady Panda decides what it does. Today, it's surveillance. Tomorrow, it could be ransomware, credential theft, or corporate espionage. The update mechanism runs automatically, hourly, forever. So the current payload monitors every website visit and exfiltrates the encrypted data to Shady Panda's servers. And what gets collected? So they're getting every URL, and basically a full browser history. HTTP refers showing navigation patterns, timestamps for activity, persistent UUID4 identifiers, complete browser fingerprints, and all data encrypted with AES before sending it to the Clean Master store. RIP. So if a researcher opened developer tools, the malware detects it and switches to benign behavior. The code uses heavy obfuscation with shorthand variable names and executes through a 158 kilobit JavaScript interpreter to bypass content security policies. So the service workers can intercept and modify the network traffic, replace legitimate JavaScript files with malicious versions, enabling credential theft, session hijacking, and content injection into any website. Yeah, pretty much, because you're running with the one thing that those extensions can do is they can just run whatever JavaScript they damn well feel like on whatever system whatever pages you've given them access to, which is typically all of them. So Shady Panda can update any of these capabilities hourly, even though the extensions were recently removed from the marketplace. The infrastructure for the full-scale attack remains deployed on infected browsers. Yeah, so that's a kicker too. If they remove that extension from the browser marketplace, it's still on your system. You have to go kick it out. Hey, Jordan, what's up, man? This is the cybersecurity version of telling scary stories around a fire late at night. This will give me nightmares. You're so cute. You still get nightmares. Me, I'm just like, world's burning again. After so many times of like seeing the world catch on fire because of stupid stuff, you do kind of get numb to it. Let's look at this. Actually, hold on. Phase 4. There's a Phase 4. Hopefully better than Marvel's Phase 4. So the spyware empire. Shady Panda's biggest operation wasn't Clean Master. The same publisher behind Clean Master in Edge, Starlab Technology, launched 5 additional extensions on Edge around 2023, which accumulated 4 million combined installs. Here's the problem. All 5 extensions are still live on the Microsoft Edge marketplace, unlike Phase 3's removed extensions. This 4 million user surveillance operation is active right now. Two of the 5 are comprehensive spyware. So the flagship WeTab has 3 million installs alone and functions as a sophisticated surveillance platform disguised as a productivity tool. I wonder what it says. I don't speak it. So WeTab collects and exfiltrates user data to 17 different domains, 8 Baidu servers in China, and 7 WeTab servers in China, and Google Analytics. Like they're like China, and Google. So what gets collected again? Every URL visited, all search queries, all mouse clicks, down to the pixel level, browser fingerprints, page interaction data, and storage access. Basically, you can access all cookies. Phase 4 dwarfs the Clean Master operation. 4 million infected users versus 300,000. So the extension remains live in the Microsoft Edge marketplace. The extension already has dangerous permissions, including access to all URLs and cookies. Users are downloading it right now. Shady Panda can push updates at any time, weaponize 4 million browsers with the same RCE backdoor framework from Phase 3, or something even worse. The infrastructure is already in place, and the update mechanism is already in place. So Shady Panda's success isn't just about technical sophistication, it's about systematically exploiting the same vulnerability for 7 years. Marketplace review extensions at submission. They don't watch what happens after approval. So what linked all the campaigns together was code signing similarities, overlapping infrastructure, identical obfuscation techniques that were evolving over time. Basically the same actor with different masks on. Each phase learned from the last, from crude affiliate fraud to patient 5-year operations. So the auto-update mechanism, designed to keep users secure, became the attack vector. Chrome and Edge trusted update pipeline silently delivered all the malware. No phishing, no social engineering, just trusted extensions with quiet version bumps that turned productivity tools into surveillance platforms. Nice. You see here. So the systemic problem isn't one malicious actor, it's the security model incentivizes this behavior. So you build something legit, pass review and gain trust by installs and verified badges, collect a large user base, weaponize it via an update, and profit before detection. Pretty much. That's how it goes. So trust, in this case, trust is the vulnerability. So Shady Panda proved the marketplace still reviews extensions the same way they did 7 years ago. Static analysis at submission, trust after approval, no ongoing monitoring. Clean Master operated legitimately for 5 years. Static analysis wouldn't catch this. So this write-up was authored by the research team at Koi Security. Koi's pretty good. They put out some really neat stuff. And at least they do have all the IOCs in here. Yeah, I've read a couple of blog posts from Koi. They do good stuff. Does every family have a designated ISSO? I'm blanking on ISSO graphic. I'm blanking. What did I bookmark this for? I'm trying to remember. I bookmarked this from something. It's measuring AI automation for remote work. What was the Explore? I don't know what this was. I bookmarked it for some reason to show tonight. Oh, the information system security officer. Okay. I thought it was something like that, except usually it's just ISO. Well, but that's a little bit too soon because you know, like an ISO file. Yeah. Or like a CISO. That sounds exactly what all the big data centers are doing. First, we started using tools, and now they spy on us and sell our data. Is there any difference? Not really, man. What was this? I'm trying to remember. It was something. There was something interesting about this, but I'm drawing a blank as to what the context was. I should have just saved more than the link to it. Remote labor index, measuring AI automation of remote work. Oh, I remember this now. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Basically, they tried to insert language models into a hypothetical gig economy, and they failed miserably. That's what this was. So the potential for AIs to automate human labor is a topic of significant interest and concern. So while AIs have a rapid progress on research-oriented benchmarks and knowledge and reasoning, it remains unclear how these gains translate into real economic value and actual automation. So to address the gap, we introduced the Remote Labor Index. So a broadly multi-sector benchmark comprising real-world, economically viable remote work projects designed to evaluate end-to-end agent performance in practical settings. So across evaluated frontier AI agent frameworks, performance sits near the floor, with a maximum automation rate of 2.5% on RLI projects. These results help ground discussions of AI automation in empirical evidence, setting a common basis for tracking progress and enabling stakeholders to proactively navigate AI-driven labor automation. So example was build some data visualization, do a 3D product render, make an animated video, do some architecture, develop architecture plans and a 3D model for a container home based on an existing PDF. Game development, build a brewing-themed version of the watermelon game where the players merge falling objects to reach the highest level possible. And scientific document preparation, format a paper using the provided figures and equations for an IEEE conference. So RLA represents a broad range of projects from across the remote labor economy, including game development, product design, architecture, data analysis, and video animation. The projects span a broad range of difficulty, with costs reaching over $10,000 and completion times exceeding 100 hours. Damn. All project costs and completion times come directly from human professionals who completed the work. So in total, the project in RL represents over 6,000 hours of real work valued at over $140,000. So the evaluation results from automation. So the model and the automation rate. Manus, whatever this guy is, was at a 2.5%. Grok 4 was at 2.1%. Sonnet 4.5 was 2.1%. And it just went down from there. That's the last of the 2%. It gets even lower for Chat, GPT, and Gemini. So while AI systems have saturated many existing benchmarks, we find that state-of-the-art agents perform near the floor on the RLI. The best performing model achieves an automation rate of 2.5%, and this demonstrates that contemporary AI systems fail to complete the vast majority of projects at a quality level that would be acceptable as commissioned work. So while absolute automation rates are low, our analysis shows that models are steadily improving, that the progress on these tasks is measurable. And that provides a common basis for the trajectory. So that was basically it. Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. They're like, hey, here's some stuff from like the gig economy. Can you do it? And it failed 87.5% of the time. Too funny. All right, what was this thing I had bookmarked? Raptor. Oh, yeah. There's something else that looked kind of cool. Based on Claude Code, of course. Autonomous Offensive Defensive Research Framework for red teams. So this was just a neat little library that I saw over here. Raptor combines conditional security tools and agentic automation and analysis, deeply understands your code, provides exploitability, or proves exploitability, and also proposes patches. So what's unique about Raptor? It has potential for autonomous security research and community collaboration. It demonstrates how Claude Code can be adapted for any purpose with Raptor packages. So this just looked like a fun one. I will drop it up in the chat for y'all. If I can figure out where my mouse is. And of course, it still didn't go 2K. There we go. So that was just a fun one that came across. Actually, there was a really cool one here, and I picked this one out because they had a really interesting infection vector. So this was called the Operation Hanoi Thief. Threat actor targets Vietnamese IT professionals and recruitment teams. But it's not so much the story, it's the how and how they did this. This was really cool. So let's see. The SecWhite Labs APT team have been tracking threats globally and have recently found a campaign targeting Vietnamese IT departments and HR recruiters using fake resume pseudo-polyglot type documents. Other researchers have seen the same activity, and we've named the campaign Operation Hanoi Thief because the final payload is, and its stealer-oriented capabilities and the geographic location in the resumes being roughly around Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam. The threat actor primarily uses a file type which we are terming as a pseudo-polyglot payload to hide the malicious intentions. This is what got my attention, was the actual payload they were using. Let's see. In the first stage, we'll see a zip file that contains a malicious spear phishing email attachment. The zip file contains two files, a document which serves as both the lure and the second stage payload, and a link file, which triggers the initial reaction. Later, we'll look at the final stage payload, which is a C++ DLL implant, which we'll call as Lotus Harvest, that executes through the DLL sideload on the target's machine. And last but not least, we'll focus on the infrastructure and other details regarding the campaign. Nice, Schuler. We're doing a port scan. There you go. I got you, boo. All right, so the entire geographic focus of this is around Vietnam, but here's what they've got. So they have a malicious email. It's got a zip file attached to it. Big no-no. And in here, we see a cv.pdf.link file. And this opens some kind of, this was funny. This was the actual file name for the PDF. OffSec Certified Professional.png. And then a batch script that would go run. And the batch script actually called this msctfmon.dll, and then it kicked off the rest of the infection vector from there. So initially, on the date of the 3rd November, our team discovered a malicious spear phishing zip file named lijuansan cv.zip, which surfaced both on our private telemetry and the famous public malware corpus known as VirusTotal. So the first file is a link file named cvpdf.link, and the second file is something we call a pseudo-polyglot payload named OffSec Certified Professional.png. So you can kind of guess what their thoughts on that are. It serves as the lure as well as the other container for the .batch script payload. So let's look at the decoy lure first. So here they send like, hey, let's look at this. They're executing the PDF via generic PDF parser or a document viewer. We see the file contains a resume of a person named Li Juan San. And he's a software developer. He's got his whole curriculum vitae here. Looking at the contents of the lure, which is the point of our research, we think we've designated for campaign delivery purposes. The person appears to be applying for a software development position, yet the name of the file, which we previously saw, is OffSec Certified Professional, which belongs in the information security domain. So a little bit of a disconnect there. That raises concerns related to the victimology. As a result, the resume available in the zip belonged with a software engineering professional. Well, as mentioned, to gain the victim's trust and establish credibility under the victims and enhance social engineering motives, the threat actor also did attach a GitHub URL to an account which has been was created back in 2021. Created, but like nothing going on here. So examining the GitHub profile mentioned in the resume, we found that the account has no updates or activity, indicating higher chances that it was specifically set up for this campaign. In the next section, we're going to examine how the link file executes the polyglot payload and how the resulting malicious DLL file operates. This is the part I'm actually really interested in. What they did with the link file to whatever this polyglot payload is. So we're going to divide our analysis into 3 different sections. First, they're going to look at the malicious link file. Second, they're going to move ahead to analyzing the second stage, which they're calling that pseudo polyglot, and how the malicious command line represents the shortcut with a link file, leveraging a unique way to execute that polyglot. And third, finally, we focus on the DLL implant. I'm less interested in the implant. I'm going to read through it, but mostly it's those first 2 steps that I'm most curious about. So upon extracting the zip file, the first document that executes is the link file, which is responsible for executing the second stager polyglot. And if we look at the command line argument, it runs FTP and what? That's an odd command line. So, I mean, FTP, there's nothing overly crazy about FTP, but I don't get what this is doing here. And why did they set the icon location to edge? So we found an interesting parameter under the command line argument, and that is the usage of FTP to execute the pseudo polyglots with the flag of TAC-S. So upon executing the link file, it displays the resume on the screen, while on the other side, the batch script, which we'll encounter in the next part, is being executed using... I didn't know FTP had any kind of code execution. Hold on, what are they using? TAC-S? Hang on. I gotta look this up real quick. Blaise, let's see here. By the way, if you hadn't seen this, this is ways for living off the land in Windows. There's another copy of it called GTFO bins, and that's the Linux variety of it. What? You can get code execution with this? No way. I did not know about that flag. So what they're doing here is they're echoing, hey, we're going to pop calc, and we're going to put this command. So basically this right here, this exclamation point command, everything from here over is going to go into ftp commands.txt. And then the FTP executable, if you pass it TAC-S, it just runs the commands that are in there. I didn't know about that. Well, that's awesome. I've done the download one. I'm surprised I didn't see this. Huh. Cool. Learn something new every day. So while calling this as a lol bin abuse, would not be pretty straightforward TTP-oriented behavior, and we're going to explain in the next section. So the pseudo polyglot, all in one. So initially looking at the file type, it is said to be a plain text file, has been parsed and determined as one by multiple file parsers, while PDF type file parsers label it as a PDF file. So depending on which parser you're sending it to, it's telling you it's a different type. That would be a polyglot. Huh. So to avoid certain confusions, we deduced it uses, or reduced it using a hex editor Look at this. So there's a malicious contents before the PDF magic header. That is wicked. So what they did is they put in all the malicious commands that are going to run with this TAC-S parameter here. And they put that in prior to the PDF magic. Oh, that is so cool. That's sick. So we figured out that the file contains a set of malicious scripts that are being executed before the PDF magic headers are present. Therefore, we carved out the script, cut it all out. Another slightly interesting yet simple part, which had to be discovered by security researchers a few years ago. An abuse in the wild, although ftp.exe is used to connect to an FTP server and execute commands such as downloading or exfiltrating, in this campaign, we saw that the FTP binary is invoking commands on a local machine using that bang symbol. Therefore, the FTP binary executes the above commands or scripts on the target machine. Nice. So looking at the script, it initially abuses, technically it's a LOLBAZ, but we'll go with it, known as device credential deployment, which basically is used to hide the command exe binary. Further, looking into the commands of the script, it enumerates for certutil binary, then renames it to lala. Then the batch script begins by renaming the offsec certified professional PNG to CV Nguyen Van A PDF, and then launches File Explorer to display the fake PDF. That is sick. That is awesome. That's a really cool sleight of hand. Hey, Bobby, what's up, man? The Mac has entered the building. He sure has. So next, the script is going to search for a base64 encoded data blob within that polyglot file, to basically with it encoded in its contents. It then extracts the encoded data, decodes it, creates a DLL file named msctfmonitor.dll, and places it in program data. And so we're going to track this as the Lotus Harvest implant. So that's their DLL sideload that they're doing. The script also copies the original ctfmon.exe file from system32 folder into the same location as the DLL file and then runs it. So as we saw, the decoded DLL is named msctfmon, which is the library file imported from ctfmon. As per the DLL search order, Windows first checks the same folder, and then that's where the sideload comes from. Oh, that's sick. I love that. That is so cool. Now what's going on here? Why are you doing that? I don't know why the green screen's being so stupid. Stop. You stop it. It was working fine just a second ago. I'm gonna fix it. I apologize. I have shamed and dishonored you. Alright, give me 1 second, guys. I gotta go get some. Not get some water. I already got water. I gotta go take care of something. I'll be right back. that shadow. The shadow right here bugs me. All right. So I'm still confused how they got the code in there. All right. Shut up. All right. Let's take a look at this. So what's happening is... I'm gonna lose all my drawing, aren't I? Hang on. Haha. I win. Okay, let me back this out a little bit. So what they're doing is they're sending a zip file. Let me grab this. So what they're doing is they're sending a zip file, right? And that zip file contains two files inside of it. So there's an LNK file. So we have LNK. That's where the actual malicious magic happens. But then there is the offsec PNG in here. Offsec.png. This guy right here. So what happens with this is the offsec PNG is actually structured in a really funny way. It's structured in the beginning to basically have commands to execute. Command, command, command. And they're all prepended with a big old exclamation point in here. And that exclamation point says each of these commands gets run not to the FTP server, but to the other, on the actual system itself. And then down here, they've got another block of PDF data, like legit PDF data in here. And they've got the magic header sitting right up here. So the overall file looks like this. They've got legit strings of text, and then they've got the PDF data with the magic header sitting after it. So what happens is when they run the LNK file, it's calling ftp.exe, right? And they're passing it the TAC-S parameter. And when they do that, they pass it in with this file right here. And what does that do? It takes all this information, brings it up here, and actually executes it against the system. And then not only that, but one of the other things it does is then it downloads from somewhere on the internet, it downloads a PDF file. I forget where they said it is, but it downloads that PDF file and then it opens it over in Explorer. So then over in Explorer, you actually do see a PDF file. If you didn't see anything, it might seem suspicious, but then you actually get a PDF file that opens up and it looks all kinds of legit. Hold on, they said that was not PNG. Hold on, am I saying that that's PNG or was that PDF? Let me see. I think they said that was PDF in there. Yeah, see here? It's going to get this program data. It's going to copy this down to here. Oh, it actually, I take that back. That's where the PDF came from. My bad. So the PDF wasn't coming from the internet. What they were doing is they were taking this and making a copy of it. And they were just renaming it from PNG over to PDF. That's what they were doing. So this polyglot file really did have everything. This guy right here was the whole shebang, the whole kit and caboodle. And then after it opens the PDF file, right? Then, but wait, there's more. It actually comes through, and one of the commands is it searches for a base64 string. It searches for a base64 string inside this PDF file, pulls it out, and then writes it to a DLL. And it uses CTFmon to actually run that DLL. CTFmon. As a DLL sideload. So that's how this was all happening in there. That is sick. I love that attack chain. See, look right here. They do a find string for the beginning of the base64 code. And they search for it in the PNG. They write it over to a temp file. They find that temp file and they move it to from temp to program data, and they use certutil to decode to ctfmonitor.dll. That's so cool. So what were they? Okay, so they've got a really cool infection vector, but what were they actually doing with it? Let me see. Phase 3. Final payload. So initially, we confirmed that the file analysis tools, and as usual, it turns out to be a 64-bit PE binary. And upon analyzing the DLL, we found that the payload functions as an information stealer. So in the following section of the blog, we explore the functionality in detail. It has anti-analysis checks in here. Let's see. It basically checks whether or not the program is running in a virtual environment. It checks if there is condition. If it detects that condition, it forces a crash. Let's see. Checks if there's a specific CPU feature, and if found, immediately triggers a fast fail termination as an anti-analysis measure. Let's see. It checks to see if there's a debugger. Throws fake exceptions. The program will make a fake crash by creating a fake exception in a fake CPU state. Changes where the code pretends to be running, and then sets an unhandled exception filter. So this tricks debuggers, messing up the call stack, and hides the program, hides what it's really doing. Nice. So then it comes through, does browser and credential harvesting. That's funny. What else do they do in here? See the implants targeting browsers like Google Chrome and Edge. It's reading basically the SQLite history database from those two browsers. And then they do their data exfil. So that was not the interesting part. All that is all the other stuff. But how this file was set up, that's just sick. That is so cool. Very neat. Yeah, it's very dirty too, Bob. Very dirty. All right. Let me see what they've got over on Last Week in Security. Let's see. Oh, it looks like Altered Security's got a 20% off coupon. If you go to the blog here, I'll drop the link for everybody in case you don't have it. Firefox Superior, not so much. I think their code's up on GitHub. See if I can find something real quick. That's funny, they have a Claude.md in here. And it goes to agents.md. Global instructions. Nice. That's funny. All right, let me see something here. Let me see if I can find the actual file I'm looking for real quick. Searching for privacy isn't going to find it. It was in a recent commit. Let me see when they're... Let's look through the commit history. I might just find it faster if I search for it. GitHub, change to... Giving away the plot here, but... I was going to kick us over to Reddit. I want to see if I can find where they actually did it in their documentation. But basically, Firefox took out the part that says, when you upload or input information through Firefox, you hereby grant us a non-exclusive right. Actually, no, this is not the right one. This is from 9 months ago. This was a very recent thing that just happened. Ah, damn. I saw, what's his bucket? Primogen talking about it. And basically, you see the code change in their GitHub. Ooh, what is this? U.S. military hackers go on offensive with help from cyber startup. U.S. has always had a private-public partnership for all things military, and now it's looking like we'll have it for offensive cyber operations as well. I hope the CISO at 20 is ready for the nation-state attacks that will inevitably follow this publication. Something's getting spicy. I'm not a robot. I know more than you. Stares. I refuse to answer your questions. I refuse to answer your questions on the fact that you're a clanker. Since AIs can solve these now, can we just, like, not? There. I already answered your damn captures. Your captures suck. Your captures are bad and you should feel bad. Do the mirrors count as part of the motorcycle? I have no freaking clue, man. Oh, nice. I like that he linked to the archive of it, so they can't just go change it. Very cool. U.S. military hackers go on the offensive with the help from cyber startup. 20's technology helps military hackers find ways to penetrate targets. Well, they're all about that penetrating, aren't they? Last fall, a group of former military hackers and cybersecurity professionals made a bet that the Pentagon would ramp up its hacking operations against adversaries, shifting its approach from defense to offense. They formed a company called 20, or XX, named after the British counter-espionage operation during World War II, the Double Cross system, which historians have credited for giving the UK a strategic edge. 20's goal is to use technologies including artificial intelligence to help military hackers automate and expedite ways to break into targeted computer networks. 20's bet paid off this summer when it signed a contract worth as much as $12 million to help U.S. Cyber Command and the U.S. Navy conduct offensive operations against America's adversaries. This is according to an interview publicly available federal contracts. Some better-known defense contractors have won multi-million-dollar contracts with the U.S. government to assist with offensive cyber missions for jamming, network intrusion capabilities, and software exploits. According to publicly available contract data, 20 is the first purely cyber warfare startup to develop AI tools for military hackers, according to Chief Executive Officer and co-founder Joe Lin, who talked about the company but declined to discuss its government contracts. So U.S. Cyber Command and the U.S. Navy didn't respond to requests for comment. Lynn's company has also secured $38 million Series A funding round led by San Francisco-based Caffeinated Capital. If there was ever a VC company name, that is it right there. According to a person familiar with the matter, I hate that person, the person familiar with the matter is never familiar with the matter, who asked not to be identified. Of course they didn't, because the information is private. Caffeinated Capital invested $26 million in the round. More folks are interested in getting involved with these companies because they are huge problems to be solved. They're really big. They're huge problems. They're the biggest, but we're going to figure them out. They're really big addressable markets, and there's a lot of money to be made, said Raymond Tonsing, founder of Caffeinated Capital, who confirmed the investment. Then why did you... If he confirmed the investment, why about this other crap with the person familiar with the matter who wished not to be identified because it's private? Yeah, this is like an advert. This was written by AI, wasn't it? Other investors include General Catalyst and In-Q-Tel, the nonprofit venture capital firm. There's no such thing. Nonprofit venture capital? Get out of here. Funded by the CIA. Get out of here. And the other U.S. national security agencies. 20, which currently has 28 employees, false advertising, can put some of the cash towards a hiring spree. Previously, Stealth Startup is looking to hire Silicon Valley AI engineers and experienced cyber operators from the NSA or Cyber Command. 20's work for the government is coming at a fortuitous time. So on Tuesday, National Cyber Director Sean Cairncross said the Trump administration's national cyber strategy will shift from primarily cyber defense to going after nation-state hackers to deter attacks before they happen, according to the Wall Street Journal. In addition, President Donald Trump in July's spending package carved out $1 billion for offensive cyber operations. We are most unapologetically afraid to do offensive cyber. That sentence is so funny to me because in the era that I grew up on the internet, cyber meant something very, very different. But it was kind of related to penetrating. Anyway. So Alexei Bolinzel? I think that's how it is. National Security Council's senior cyber director said in September. Sounds like a psyop. Probably. Adversaries are upgrading too. Anthropic reported last week that Chinese-linked hackers used its model to partially automate a successful intrusion campaign. Yeah, very partially. They basically hired like 40 script kiddies for what they did with Claude. But 20 believes this technology gives U.S. cyber warriors an edge by helping them detect entry points to enemy networks in cyberspace. The same kinds are exploited by adversarial nations and ransomware groups, Lin said during an interview. Yada yada. Lin is a former reservist intelligence officer for the Navy, keeps a framed photograph of former Secretary of Defense General Jim Mattis in his office walls with the caption, "Be polite, be professional, but have a plan to kill everyone you meet." I'm not aware of this alternative definition of cyber. I'll just say this. You have kids, so you know what it is. You just haven't linked the two in your mind. Let's see. So 20 helps analysts crunch enormous amounts of data for clues about enemy targets. Looking for digital signatures or things such as government offices or military units. 20's technology can also help government analysts detect adversary networks that are exposed to public internet or vulnerable to certain exploits. So the company's technology... Okay, I'm sure all this is actually true, but the question I have is this really doing anything that any of the alphabet soups haven't been doing already? Because if they haven't, that is a freaking shame. '20's founder, blindly using artificial intelligence is irresponsible, Okay, this was less cool than I thought it would be. Ooh, what is this? A CTF focused on cybersecurity standard that is currently being implemented by the US government is novel. Check this out real quick. Jason, what's up, man? What's up, my brother? We were just reading a little bit of news today. This website, your CSS is bad and you should feel bad. Let's see. So the CTF is a hands-on cybersecurity competition designed to immerse participants in the practical aspects of the cybersecurity maturity model. Through realistic, challenge-based scenarios, players explore common compliance gaps, boring, security controls, and threats faced by defense contractors. CTF blends technical problem-solving with compliance-driven thinking. Boring. Helping participants understand how security requirements translate into real-world incidents. Okay, I say boring, but I know there are people that absolutely go and they love like GRC type stuff, and I love them for loving it because I'm glad they can do something that they enjoy and I don't have to do it. We're just checking on some of the, looking through some of the news here real quick. Ooh. Android Quick Share support for AirDrop? What? Does it work both ways? Or is it just like you can AirDrop to somebody with Quick Share? So as part of our efforts to continue making cross-platform communication more seamless for users, we've made Quick Share interoperable with AirDrop, allowing for two-way file sharing between Android and iOS devices, starting with the Pixel 10 family. Get out of here. I don't have a Pixel 10. Mine's an older Pixel. Makes it possible to quickly share photos, videos, files, yada, yada, yada. Secure by design. Built-in platform protection. So this feature is strengthened by a robust built-in security for Android. On Android, security is built in at each layer. Our deep investment in Rust at the OS level hardens foundation. You know what? I'll be real with y'all. Every company I've seen saying we're going full in on Rust and AI has had a major outage, except Google. I don't think Google's had any major outage. Like, I haven't seen like a GPC outage getting reported anywhere. At the same time, if there was a GCP outage, would anybody notice? Anyway, that's a fun little tidbit. I'm not getting a Pixel 10 anytime soon. Probably not until they have like the Pixel 12 out. Oh, interesting. Let's see. Lawmakers want to ban VPNs and they have no idea what they're doing. Yep. Lawmakers don't understand technology. Huawei and Chinese surveillance. Interesting anecdote from the Stone Group founder about how the Ministry of State Security told him they were going to send agents to work undercover at his company in positions dealing with international relations. Nothing that ties this to Huawei, but interesting nonetheless. All right, I'm going to skip that one. Oh, interesting. Graphene OS is migrating their server infrastructure from France amid police intimidation claims. By the way, I didn't go into this too deep, but there was a new Shai Hulud variant that came out, and it hit hard. It hit hard and wide. It made Shai Hulud 1 look kind of weak by comparison. I did a check. There was a query floating around that you could go check repos in GitHub because it was running along the same kind of attack path that Shai Hulud 1 did, and it dropped new GitHub repos. And when it did that, when I went and checked, it was like 26,000 repos. Yeah, the only one that I know of that's like really open source, Graphene OS is open source. I'm pretty sure. Let's see. Graphene OS. I can't type. Open source. Yeah, Graphene OS is open source, and PinePhone is another one. Sailfish is another one, but it seemed very closed open source. I haven't seen Sailfish. I'm not familiar with it. I was actually considering wiping this phone and putting graphene on it, but I just haven't done it. I don't know if I'm ever going to do that. I might be just too comfortable in the Google ecosystem. I love this. Stop putting your passwords into random websites. Yes, seriously, you are the problem. It's so easy to self-host these kinds of formatters. There's no excuse for using random websites, and then save them is just something else. Oh, that's funny. Let's see. Actually, I had this one already kind of bookmarked, but I was saving it. Reflecting your authentication when Windows ends up talking to itself. Anything else in here? Let's see. Oh, by the way, there was a shout out up here somewhere. Where was it? I don't think this was the one. Let me see if I can find it real quick. There was another one in here. Because my buddy Garrett got a big shout out up here. Ah, here we go. SDCM hierarchy takeover via intra integration because of the implication. 3 posts from Spectre Ops in 1 last week in security. Yep. At this point, Garrett Foster may be the world's leading expert on SDCM attacks. So one of my friends pointed that out to Garrett, and he's like, dude, that's like the most humbling things everybody's ever said. I thought that was really funny. That's like a really big shout out. All right, let's go take a look at that one since I already had it pulled up. Reflecting your authentication. Here we go. So authentication reflection has been around for more than 20 years, but the implication in modern Windows networks are far from obsolete. Even after the patches Microsoft has rolled out over the years, reflection attacks are still very much exploitable. So this post walks through what authentication reflection actually is, why it remains dangerous, and how most recent discoveries prove that reflection keeps coming back in places it really shouldn't. So we're going to explore how recent Microsoft behavior introduced entirely new attack surfaces, including Kerberos, previously not reflectable. I mean, there were some ways you could kind of do it, but for the most part, Kerberos is designed in such a way that you shouldn't be able to do like a reflect on it. Kerberos, NTLM, SMB, HTTP, and DCRCP. We'll look at Ghost SPNs and the Crash Marshal targets also. The goal is to keep the explanations clear enough for readers who aren't experts on the topics without losing important technical details. I spent a few days deleting everything in my Google history, hundreds of K of data down to 200 stored emails. Basically that and a few zip files. It's scary how much they had stored. Hence my question. Yeah. Dude, I have so much in my Google Drive. It's ridiculous. It's just my dumping ground for files. Let's see. So authentication reflection is deceptively simple. So a victim machine is coerced to authenticating to an attacker-controlled endpoint. The attacker reflects that authentication back to a service the victim host is running itself, and the victim ends up authenticating to its own service using its own identity. Basically, so the target sends the target, here, you coerce authentication to it in some way. It says, hey, authenticate against me. Sure, my authentication is Kerberos or whatever you prefer. Thanks, I'll reflect your authentication right back to you. This is a very simplified version, but this is exactly what happens to it. So depending on the coercion vector, you can get a local or remote privilege escalation or a full domain compromise when you're reflecting hits LDAP and on a DC and it's under certain conditions. So like if they're a very, very privileged account or a very, very privileged computer. You can make a Google scripting platform to automatically delete emails older than a certain time. But I want my emails. Let's see. Oh, I remember this. This was like one of the first exploits I did on the old OSCP, MS-08067. So authentication redirection was first widely exploited in MS-080. Oh no, this is a different one. I was thinking MS-08067. This is 068 before they went to CVEs. Intilium authentication could be reflected back to an SMB server on the same host, yielding system privileges. Microsoft eventually patched the classic loopback reflection, including same protocol reflection, NTLM and NTLM, and cross-platform reflection. But the story didn't end there. That was there was still NTLM local authentication. Kerberos authentication, harder but not impossible. Kerberos does not have a universal reflection detection mechanism, but requiring control of the target SPN and a valid Kerberos ticket makes such attacks substantially harder.
A virus has been detected.
S1Y_B0RG virus detected in the network.
I love when it reads out your name, Slyborg, because it cracks me up so much. What's up, everybody? Raid! How goes the go? I know. I need to get slightly more bald, actually. I don't think you can see it, but my head's kind of fuzzy. I'm looking rather Chia Petty right now. So, what's up, everybody? Welcome in, Raiders. We're just talking about reflection attacks. Here, let me scroll back up. This is the idea. Hey, talk to me. Okay, sure. Here's how I authenticate. Okay, cool. I'm going to use your authentication back against you. That's essentially what a reflection attack is. Yes. Hack the planet. Good. I was meaning to make so speaking of that, I was meaning to make a video on Anthropic's, like Chinese attacking thingy that happened a couple weeks ago. Unfortunately, all my setup was busted. I'm working on cleaning it up right now. But I was going to call it, like, the question of the video is like, did Claude hack the planet? And I just thought that was going to be a really funny title. How'd you survive with that beard? Do you have a foot in there or something? It depends. Actually, behind the beard is just another fist. I learned that from the great Chuck Norris. So we're going to discuss amplification attacks later. Nah, not amplification attacks, because amplification attacks really just, they're really only good for like DDoSing something, resource exhaustion at the network layer. But, or it could be to other layers, but that's the usual one they go for. But reflection attacks are really cool, and everybody kind of thinks they're a solved problem, but not really, because I think they actually introduced some new ones in Windows 11. So, after long hair, beard's not my thing for some reason. So what's funny, Foot, is I had long hair when I was younger. I had long hair, ponytail, all that jazz, and like couldn't grow any facial hair. It all grew like down here, and it looked like pubes. It was terrible. And I didn't actually intend to grow the beard out until my second son was born. And when my second son was born, I was working I was getting ridden like a rented pony at work. And so I was getting worked like a rented mule. And I was just, shaving was out the window. I was working like between work and family. I was doing like 20-hour days. I was barely sleeping 4 hours a night. And so shaving was out the window. And after several months of that, my beard, which I normally kept really short, started getting longer and longer. And then my second son, Honey Badger, just doing baby things, reaches up one day and starts playing with my beard and thinks it's freaking hilarious. I'm like, well, man, now I can't shave it off now. And so he just turned 4. It's been growing ever since. Hey, Footlong, thanks for coming online, man. Welcome in. You haven't seen my pubes yet, BBG. I would like to keep it that way. I would really like to keep it that way. Oh, let's see. So yeah, what we're talking about here is some reflection attacks that came up. By the way, if you guys want to get a cool weekly digest of all sorts of cool news stories, this is the blog where we're pulling a lot of these stories from. Actually, we didn't pull many from tonight. We actually just started coming to it. I had some other ones that were bookmarked, but this one just happened to overlap with it. And so some of the cool things you can do with these reflection attacks is you can do a local or remote privilege escalation, and sometimes you can actually compromise the entire domain, depending on if you can like relay to LDAP or LDAP-S, and they don't have security controls turned on, boom, insta win. There's been plenty of times when I have relayed from a domain controller to another domain controller to LDAP. No, was it LDAP? I don't remember. Well, if you did do it through LDAP, that's fine. But essentially relaying it, I forget offhand which tickets I got, but then basically using that impersonated relay as to DC sync down everything. So lots of fun. I enjoy relay attacks or reflection attacks. What did he call it? Reflection attacks is what he called it. Really, it's like a relay kind of, but not really. Relay and reflection do technically have different ideas behind them. LDAP anonymous auth is always heartbreaking to see. I could do you one a little bit better, Euler. I had a client that had their Edge firewall severely misconfigured, and they had anonymous LDAP exposed out to the internet. Why didn't it play the sound? Why didn't it do that? Hey, Footlong, thanks for popping a shell, man. Appreciate that. Yeah, they had anonymous LDAP exposed out to the internet. They had no idea it even happened. Dude. Freaking Footlong's over here gifting 20 gifted subs. Or as I like to call them, 20 gifted shells. He's an initial access broker now. Dude, thank you so much. And you kicked off a level 5 hype train all by yourself. Choo-choo! Yeah, man, thank you so much. I super appreciate that. I really do appreciate it because a couple weeks ago, the reason why I haven't been putting out YouTube videos is because my computer was pretty much dying and limping along. Finally, I diagnosed it to the CPU had gone bad, and I was able to get it back up and running. But a big part of that was this OBS configuration, everything you see here where it's running it, like everything we're like, oh, you're going to see the broken camera right now because the green screen is acting up. But like all that stuff, all that configuration took so long to set up. And so I limped this computer along for forever. Finally, now I've got a dedicated streaming computer that's handling everything. Lets me run more on this computer here. But all that was paid for from Blaise Bits. It's got its own little bank account, and I just put everything in there, and then I just take out what I need to go buy stuff for the stream. So subscriptions, whatever else I need, hardware. That's what it all comes from. So I super appreciate it, man. I put Blaise Bits money over there. I put Blaise's money over there. Oh, that's so cool. Thanks again, man. Let's see here. So relaying NTLM, not usually super difficult, but relaying of Kerberos, usually you've got to have some kind of service principal name that you can go attack. Thanks for reminding me I was in the middle of building a box of ice. Dude, it sucks. Actually, at first I thought it was the power supply, so I spent 3 hours uncabling and then recabling this system. And then it was still having the same problem. Then I realized it was the CPU. Here's the old CPU, right here. Hey, Bob, thanks for the gifted sub, man. The gifted shell. So now I let this CPU sit in the chair of shame. I'm not going to say the actual name of the chair. It gets to sit and watch all the other computers operating since it failed and not participate. If you know, you know. Gumby, if we get to go storm chasing together, yes, I will bring you this processor and I will give it to you as a keepsake. If I find it on eBay, though, I'm going to say split the money with me. Nah, I don't care. Anyway, let's look at this real quick before we got to wrap up the stream in about 20 minutes or so. This one's actually really interesting. Cred Marshal target info. And there's a trick to this, and I think it was James Forshaw that came up with it. So to perform the reflection attacks, we have to convince Windows to direct the authentication back to itself. So in practice, that means spoofing the host name so the authentication is sent to an endpoint under our control, and while the client still believes that the target host name is local. So to achieve this, we need control over a service principal name that Kerberos and Intilium V2 use to identify that target service. So in other words, our forged service principal name, the ideal situation is that the client uses an SPN target where the target resolves to an IP address we control. But it's still considered local. So it thinks it's talking to itself, but in actuality it's talking to us because of the way it does all the DNS mappings. Yeah, but just do an exclamation point Discord in the chat and it will drop it for you. Let's see here. What else we have? Oh, there's also a scenario for this for DCOM. And this was basically the basis of a lot of the potato attacks. So we create a fake OXID resolver, and this allows us to instruct the client to use an SPN associated with the victim, and while still contacting the endpoint under our control. So this gives us the victim's authentication, which we can then reflect back to the victim's own services because he is the victim. Yo, dog, I heard you like services. I'm going to reflect your services. However, if we need to use any other protocol such as SMB, which doesn't give us control over the SPN, we need to find an alternative, which is the Cred Marshal target info. And this, okay, I called it. This was the one from James Forshaw. Windows SSPI, which is Secure Service Provider Interface, I think. I forget what it stands for. It supports a special SPN format that includes an embedded Marshal target information block. And what we can do is we can actually basically just request it from a target that is not valid, but it decodes as valid. That's essentially what it's doing, because it's going to serialize it and then deserialize it. So the tiny blob is enough for Windows to consider the SPN well-formed, but also allows us to spoof the hostname inside the SPN as the way in a way that survives the SPN conversion, basically, and the Kerberos processing and Intilium's AV pairing. So even better, a standard domain user could by default create DNS records, which means that we can freely introduce new names that point to the attacker-controlled IP address. Yeah, so if you didn't know this, pretty much any user can do what is the term? Can go register like dynamic DNS names in Active Directory. How did the CPUs go? How did it go bad? That doesn't happen very often. It seems randomly happened, to be honest. I have no idea, man. I got no idea. All I noticed was, and it might have been some kind of a voltage issue. I went through so many steps troubleshooting this computer, completely updated and wiped the firmware on the BIOS. Well, I didn't really wipe it. When I updated the firmware, I reset everything back to factory just in case there was some setting I had messed around with that wasn't kosher in there. I don't know what. I suspect it probably was some kind of a voltage regulation issue and it fried circuits in here because the system became progressively more unstable as time went on. So before, I just couldn't let the computer idle. At idle, it would just crash and blue screen. I get a DPC watchdog error, which is the most generic, something went bad and we don't know what message. It sucks. After that, I noticed, okay, if I leave a YouTube video running in the browser, it stays on. I was like, okay, the computer's got narcolepsy. It just doesn't want to go to sleep. All right, fine. Here's a YouTube video. It's a 12-hour compilation of rain noises, whatever. I just let it go hang out. And then that wasn't enough. I was like, okay. Then I noticed if I left OBS open, then OBS would produce enough workflow that it would keep it open. I didn't have to be streaming or anything, just OBS had to be up. And after a while, that wasn't enough. Then I noticed if I had a game running and I was stressing the GPU, what I thought was the GPU, it would keep up. But really, it was stressing the CPU. So the CPU was needing like progressively more and more and more power to stay online. It was wild. And eventually, it just got so unstable, I couldn't even use it for like more than a minute. Actually, I could use it for a couple minutes if I ran Furmark on it. The stress testing suite, right? If I was just cranking the crap out of it, I could get it to be stable for a few minutes. And there was only two possibilities. The power supply was going bad and it was getting like weird voltages, or it was the CPU. I chose to go with the power supply first because it was cheaper. And that didn't fix it. So then I replaced the CPU. Technically, it could have been both. I did not put the old PSU back in the system. It could have been sending bad voltages and that's what killed the CPU. So maybe it was the combination of the two. But all I know is once I replaced the CPU, finally, well, and the power supply, then everything was back to good. Except Windows 11 is stupid and it deactivated my license. Because it's like, oh, you had a massive hardware change. I was like, yeah, I know. The hardware was dead. And yes, Gubby, thanks for reminding everyone. Yes, remember the rules of the chat, everybody? Rule number 1 is, I think, be excellent to each other. Or don't hack Twitch and YouTube and Kick, because that's where I do my work. Rule 2 is everyone in chat is a fed. Rule 3 is don't talk about anything illegal in chat. See rule number 2. I know a guy who designs CPUs for a chip fab, and he told me it could be done easily by neutrinos. They allow for this with many internal safeguards to stop solar gremlins. Huh. Interesting. I wouldn't have thought that from neutrinos. Because neutrinos are really, really weakly interacting subatomic particles. You hold your thumb up, you've literally got billions of them streaming through your thumb right now, not even hardly interacting. They had to build entire observatories that were submerged in liquid helium, I think, just to try and have sensors in there in the off chance they could catch like a random photon from a particle being an atom being excited from the like 1 in quadrillion, whatever huge number it is, number of interactions that were going to happen. Because there's not a 0 chance, but there is a close to 0 chance. So they were just trying to expand it and get like super large numbers in it. If there's feds in here, hook me up with the job. I'm starving. I don't know if you want those jobs that the feds have, man. Actually, if you want a fed job, just go into the sketchy telegrams. They'll reach out to you. Just start saying stuff about how you don't like the government. They'll be like, hey, we heard you don't like the government. Want to come work for the feds? Anyway. Anyway, let's go back over to this, how we're doing this reflection. So, rewinding a bit, basically we send this kind of pseudo serialized blob, and when it deserializes over on the Windows side, it looks like a valid SPN. And so it allows us to kind of change the target of where we're hitting. So when the SPN includes that CMTI blob, what happens is Kerberos is going to request a service ticket from whatever the class is and the server. NTLM will embed the value in this target name value, and then the client will actually contact the host name, which is whatever this server is right here. So if that host name resolves to an attacker-controlled system, but the internal target info makes Windows treat it like it's a local system, because all the DNS names match, then we get the exact situation reflection attack we relied on earlier. In fact, there's even ways like you can do some of these like locally using like beacon object files. No, not the Large Hadron Collider. Let me see what it is. Neutrino detector. Yeah, so there was this large neutrino detector. And see this? This is all like little light sensors. Actually, these are the sensors and these are the exciters in here. And so they got these cameras in here trying to like detect photons that are happening from when neutrinos hit these pearl-shaped things here. Can I make this bigger? A little bit bigger. There we go. So these are cameras designed very, very sensitive, designed to detect neutrinos when they hit these like pearly objects here. And the chances of them having an interaction is stupidly low. Because, like you said, in your thumb right now, there's billions of neutrinos just shooting through it right now. And I want to say they've submerged it in liquid helium. I don't remember exactly, but it's super, super cold. And it's, and they did it like in the North Pole. Let's see. Where was that? I think, is it North Pole? Wait, hold on. The AI overview. Let's see. The Deep Underground Neutrino Experiment is a leading international experiment in neutrino science designed to explore fundamental questions about matter, antimatter, and universe evolution. DUNE consists of 2 neutrino detectors. One located at a source at Fermilab in Illinois. Okay, not the one I was thinking of. Much larger detector installed 1,300 kilometers away, and it's more than a kilometer underground at Stanford's University Research. For some reason, I thought this was like in the freaking North Pole or something. No, they just put it way underground. I don't know where I got the North Pole from. I'm thinking Christmas. But yeah, so that's what they're doing with these. What do they do here? The experiment uses, liquid argon. That's it. They're using liquid argon as a detection medium and combines it with some other stuff in there. Yeah, it's crazy. They're like really trying to stress that that Heisenberg uncertainty principle there. You can see our sun on the opposite side by looking at the neutrino array. Oh yeah, dude, it's nuts how weak neutrinos are interacting. So that's why when he was talking about the neutrinos interacting with CPUs, I'm like, wow, that's really odd. There was a case of, so after the Chernobyl incident, there was a lot of irradiated cattle that were going through Russia, and it was so many, and they were so worried about the food supply, they didn't want to just cull these cattle. So what happens is they went and mixed them. Shut up, baby, I know it. So what they did is they mixed the irradiated cattle with normal cattle. So they were basically just trying to dilute the dose into the beef supply. But one thing they noticed is that there was a computer at a train station that was crashing every time, and they didn't know what it was. It was like happening on a regular schedule. And then finally they realized it was every time these cattle cars were coming in. And it's because the ionizing radiation coming off the cattle from the Chernobyl fallout. And that I understand. That ionizing radiation is so much more powerful than the neutrinos. But man, happening from a neutrino, you're tripping me out here. Have you heard about the GPS infrastructure being deprecated so you could just calculate your positions off of pulsars? I did not hear about that. I mean, I knew about positioning with pulsars, and that's a thing that they do. But I had not heard about them like saying, "Hey, let's just get off of GPS and go for it." That'd be kind of wild. I wonder how that would work. I guess because those pulsars are putting out radio emissions, I guess that would work. Speaking of pulsars, that was how they detected large gravitational waves. So if you remember what the LIGO experiment to detect gravitational waves, funny enough, I lived like a mile away from that thing when I was in Louisiana. I was so sad I never went to go see it. I kept meaning to. It's one of the things you put off, and I just never went to go see it. But anyway, I was like a mile away from that when I lived in Louisiana. And that thing is detecting like really high power gravitational waves. But what they actually did is they took pulsars and they watched these pulsars as the waves go by, and they got gravitational waves distorting those pulsars that I want to say were like light years long, like huge amounts. Neutrinos can mess with all electronics during a solar flare? Really? Never been to Louisiana, but I heard the food's awesome. It was all right. It does have some really good spots, but you got to go to like the mom and pop places. You don't want to go to like the regular places. My dad grew up in Louisiana. That's where he was born and raised. And I've been pretty much in Texas my entire life. I lived in Louisiana for a few years. Never thought that would ever happen. but we went there for my wife's job. And while we were there, I thought it was really funny that, actually, no, I take that back. Different time. I was visiting my grandmother because she still lived in Louisiana. And I told my dad, I was like, hey, while we're here, I want to go get some really good Cajun food. He's like, okay, yeah, we can do that. We get there, we're there, it's dinner time one night. I was like, Dad, let's go get some really good. I want to get some crawfish étouffée. I want to get some Creole. I want to just chow down on tasty Cajun food. He's like, all right, cool. Why don't we go to Papa Do's? Like, Daddy, we got Papa Do's at home. I don't want to go to Papa Do's in Louisiana. That's like saying I'm going to go get a McRib when I'm in St. Louis. That's just not right. So they're called signal events, and they upset a CPU that upset CPU lands, I believe. So the first part is called ECC mitigation. Internally, they use a 100-bit wide floating point and round these to errors before returning the result. I live in California, so I only have water pistols for my constitutional protections. That's a bummer, dude. I had a buddy who's a really big hunter and gun collector, and he was so happy when he moved out of California for that very reason. No, Slow, I'm not from St. Louis, but you always think about like St. Louis barbecue. That was the joke. I was like, me going to Louisiana and going to get Cajun food at Papa Do's would be like going to St. Louis to go get a McRib. I was like, bro, nah. Ooh, I totally lost like where I was in this article since we've been just having a good conversation. Yeah, dude, I know another buddy of mine that's here in Dallas. The other friend, he moved to Idaho, I think, and he was like shocked whenever he moved to Texas. So this is a true story. His wife is from overseas, and the only thing she knew of the U.S. was East LA, right? Not exactly the most friendly, cuddly place on the planet, and when they finally decided, and he had to work his butt off for like 4 years to save money because it was so expensive to live there. He finally decided, hey, we're going to move. He sends his wife. He's working 2 jobs and I think a third part-time job. He sends his wife here to Dallas, where I live, and says, hey, go scout out houses. And he moves to, so she comes out here. She starts looking at houses, calls him up. The very first thing she says is, this is what I thought America would look like. I was like, damn. Getting roasted, LA. Oh, you're in San Fran. Okay. Dude, I have never been to San Francisco. I think I haven't even really gotten close to San Francisco. The closest I get when I go up that way is occasionally I go up to Seattle for work. But that's about as close as I get, which is not even really close. It's not even close to San Francisco. It's like, it's a ways far as ways, but that's as close as I get. Yeah. No, you're good, man. You're all good, dude. Yeah, UK's laws, I feel bad for them. They got some crazy ones right now. Anyway, let's finish up this authentication reflection here. So what we're doing is we're registering DNS that looks like the same computer, but it's us, and we're reflecting it back. And so there's a lot of like conditions you have to do to get this to work just right. But then we send this basically blob that makes it look like it's coming from local, but it comes to us. So in this case, he's talking to CIFS, which is basically SMB. And then we have the server, and then we have all this other junk in here. So we can trick to force local authentication when we don't have a direct control over an SPN. So that's what allows SMB to SMB reflection even without direct SPN control, and that's why CMTI-based spoofing became such a powerful tool in reflection attacks. But we can also do DCOM to HTTP. So abusing DCOM's not new. Windows exposes the interface, and it's particularly useful for coercion. On Windows systems with the certificate services role installed, systems expose the ADCS CertServe request interface, which can be instantiated remotely by any domain user and will trigger an outbound machine authentication from the ADCS server. So I already covered that in the post. Hello, I'm your ADCS server and I want to authenticate against you. where I demonstrate it's possible to reflect the machine Kerberos authentication back to the server and abuse it in an escalation 8 scenario. I've done this before and used it to go get a certificate as a domain controller. So basically, then I am impersonating a domain controller. I can just DC sync down whatever hashes I want. Let's see. So it's not possible to reflect DCOM to SMB because SMB enforces anti-reflection protections, but for both Kerberos and NTLM. Let's see. So in this case, this particular flag is actually honored by the SMB client, which prevents authentication from being reused against the same host by stripping the SPN in the case of a loopback authentication. But SMB to SMB Kerberos and NTLM reflection, they fixed this one recently. It made me sad. But prior to June 2025, SMB callback coercion using print spooler and EFS, RPC, and DFS could force an SMB client to authenticate to an arbitrary endpoint. And so by abusing CMTI, a remote attacker could abuse Kerberos and NTLM reflection authentication and ultimately gain system privileges. Curb Relay X. Love you. Microsoft did patch the SMB client behavior, though, in a CVE, and rejecting invalid and empty CMTI target info when establishing those sessions. So it kind of broke that. But they have not fixed this yet. Ghost SPNs and ghost reflections. So I wondered whether or not reflections could still be abused after that patch. Enter a ghost SPN. SPN that reflects host names that are not, or no more, registered in DNS. So if present, then Kerberos SMB to SMB reflection could still be abused. So by creating a ghost SPN in DNS and pointing it to an IP address we control, the attacker can trick the target machine into performing a reflective authentication using Kerberos. And that results in a valid service ticket for the non-existent ghost computer. So basically, once you get the service ticket, you don't have full access to the machine, but you have access to everything that's controlled under that service. So for example, if you get a SIFS ticket, you can connect to SMB. If you get a host ticket, there's all sorts of other services that you can connect to. You can connect to, what's my favorite one? The task scheduler. Then you have access as the task scheduler. You go in and just put your C2 payload in there and boop, shells on a timer. Let's see. Microsoft fixed this in October 2025 in the SMB server driver by validating loopback addresses. I missed that. Let's see. NTLM local authentication and reflective abuse. So NTLM local authentication is a special type of authentication occurring in the same machine context and is negotiated by the client and the server. So in NTLM local auth, the reserved field in the NTLM v2 or the NTLM 2 message isn't empty, but will reference an LSAS context handle that the client should associate with. NTLM v3 authentication messages would be completely empty. So the worst abuse for this particular reflection was our local potato, which was a DCOM to SMB. And by swapping the authentication context between the privileged RPC DCOM and the attacker-controlled SMB client, the unprivileged user could impersonate system. And this effectively resulted in a local privilege escalation. Unfortunately, that was patched in 2023. However, remote variants were viable through 2025. Nice. I like this one. Remote NTLM reflection against domain controllers. This is a very nice overview of the history of reflection attacks. I'm loving this. I forget exactly what it is too, Bob. If it is a memory location or if it's a handle. I believe it's just whatever the handle is, and then the operating system will convert that handle into whatever raw memory address it needs. I think. My Windows internals are kind of weak. It's been on my to-do list to buff up on them. I have James Forshaw's book over there on the shelf somewhere. I got a beard hair in my nose. These ones on my mustache. They'd like to just and stab me in the nose. All right, so before 2025, there was a low-hanging fruit that was never officially reported and was unintentionally fixed. So in NTLM local authentication, the NTLM 3 message is completely empty, which means that an NTLM v2 validation message integrity context control check, message integrity check, MSAV flags, and the NT proof string were probably skipped. So what does that mean? It allowed us to drop the sign flag without interfering with the message integrity check, which opened the door for reflecting authentication across protocols. In this case, you could go from SMB to LDAP. where signing should have been stopped. Basically, signing should have stopped it. But it didn't stop there. With LDAP-S or HTTPS, the channel binding requirements would be completely bypassed. Yeah, there's a lot of times I'll reflect to LDAP-S, where LDAP will be like enforcing channel bindings, but LDAP-S won't. It's kind of weird. By making some small changes to NTLM Relay X, mostly removing the signed seal while keeping NTLM 3 intact, you could coerce domain controllers to authenticate and then reflect the authentication back to LDAP, or LDAP-S. And that was a complete domain takeover at that point. And this just got patched in June 2025. So what this meant is any domain user could take over an Active Directory domain. In fact, by inhibiting the CMTI trick in SMB, this sort of highly disruptive abuse was no longer possible. RIP. Missed that. So what's the story in 2025? Windows Server 2025, Microsoft tightened the printing security. As part of this, the print notify callback was moved away from the name pipe and now uses DCE RPC. The unintended side effect is that DCE RPC still supports the CMTI trick. All that's old is new. And here's another interesting aspect. The DCE RPC, we no longer need to spoof the SPN or manipulate the DNS records. Using the attacker's IP address is enough. NTLM will happily negotiate local authentication. Oh, what's funny is you wouldn't really call this a reversion, but it is funny. Like sometimes, like, hey, we're gonna make this more secure. We're gonna move it over here. Cool, you did fix the thing you wanted, but you introduced a new bug. So that could allow any domain user to take over a Windows Server 2025 DC with print spooler. Well, if it had the print spooler enabled. Since I couldn't find any more details on this, I built my own custom POC implementing the new callback. And this was unfortunately fixed also. And then we have all the countermeasures in here. All right. Good stuff. That's a good note to finish on for tonight. Unfortunately, because I do have to work in the morning and I have not been sleeping enough. I've been trying to fix the stream setup. And as you can see, like the green glow around me and the freaking shadow right there. I'm on the struggle bus. It has to do with the way the camera's all set up. So I gotta go tweak it some more. I got a Windows 2000 distributed system guide and the rest of the 6 books set here on my desk. Oh, damn. That's a lot, man. All right, let's go see if anybody is over on InfoSec streams. Who do we got? Fixit42's on. What's he doing? He is not on. But he was doing Advent to Cyber, it looks like. Man. Hold on. So, by the way, if you have not seen infosecstreams.com, this is a cool little community project. And if you ever want to get onto it, like if you start streaming, it's real easy. What you do is you go to the GitHub here, and then there is a streamer's CSV file here. So all you do is you come through, you fork it, you edit it, and you submit your change. And this is just a CSV file with everybody's info on it. So it's your Twitch handle and your YouTube handle. Eventually I'm going to ask, well, I don't know what that's going to do because on Kick, you've got, they don't have a really stable API. That's the one area like Kick is like really lagging on behind. So this would be something that you, if you decide to start streaming, come in here, add yourself to the streamers, and you'll show up on the interface up here. Unfortunately, the hooks don't always work. So I don't know when Fixit42 was last online. Hold on, it'll tell me if I click on his page. I don't know, last online 12 hours ago. So, not super helpful there. Yeah, I'll go tease GoPro about it. But by the way, if you guys over on the Twitch side, if you've got any raid suggestions, feel free to shout them out.
Incoming transmission from Marano Gumby. This is your nightly reminder to push it real good even though you didn't work on the bot.
I did not work on the bot. The code is up to date though. Thank you for the reminders because I have been pushing it every time we work on it. That one time's code scare where I thought I might have lost 4 months of work was enough to scare me straight. Scared straight. Let's see. Who's over in Science and Tech right now? Science is on. Oh, you know what? Someone called out Moo Hoodies. Yeah. Let's go right over to her because she's doing cool star stuff. We were just talking about all sorts of Astro stuff in there. So yeah, we'll go right over to her. All right.
Incoming transmission from Moreno Gumby. Love you long time.
That's the wrong button. Love you long time, Gumby. Ew, ew. There we go. Streaming it. There we go. All right, guys. Do me a favor. When you get over to Moo Hoodies, drop a bunch of Hack the Planets in there. Show some love. I've seen her streaming a bunch, but I haven't had a chance to really catch her streams too much. So, everyone, y'all have a fantastic rest of your week. Crushing It mode is still enabled. The week is not over. Continue crushing it. And I want you to all have a fantastic rest of your week. I'm going to be working tomorrow, working late tomorrow, class on Friday. I got a lot of stuff on my plate, so I'll try to work on it. But I'm not letting it get me down. Crushing It mode. We do not go weekly into the week. And I think that's all I got for you guys. Hopefully I'll have some new fun tools from this Jason Haddock's class I'm doing. But I think that's it. Oh, wait, I forgot. There's one very important thing. Everybody, make sure you pay attention. I don't want to repeat myself, but I love you. Peace.